You may rise. Su Qi's lips twitched slightly, nearly blurting out these two words involuntarily. At this moment, he, dressed in white similar to Venerable Iju, concealed his face with a mask. After all, to infiltrate, he couldn't possibly use Su Buxian's well-known face, a face that was wanted. He still had to maintain the persona of a venerable. He simply nodded slightly. I didn't expect that half an hour after contacting you, you would arrive so quickly. I thought you would meet me after I entered the city. The man smiled respectfully. After all, we dare not neglect the arrival of a venerable. Allow me to introduce myself, Venerable. My name is Jin Sanyuan, and I am an officer of the Hidden Killing Association. Su Qi contacted the force waiting to meet him here, following the method the Angel Envoy had provided. But he hadn't expected them to arrive so quickly. And the Hidden Killing Association. These words sounded familiar. With a slight jog of memory, he recalled something. During the incident at the Rainbow Bridge, the Hidden Killing Association was one of the many forces, among the most powerful, yet their backers had not shown themselves. Originally, they were part of the Abyss Church. Now, using the identity of a venerable, it was a good opportunity to determine how many forces were aligned with the Abyss camp. Jin Sanyuan had a sycophantic air about him, yet he possessed an exceptionally powerful aura, and he smiled respectfully. Venerable, please accompany me into the city. All right, let's go. Su Qi didn't need to ask. His psychic senses alone could tell that Jin Sanyuan possessed the strength of Sequence 6. For someone so powerful to be so obsequiously ingratiating was rare, especially since Sequence 6 had absolute coercive power over the lower sequences. And the reason for all this? It appeared that besides the rigid hierarchy of the Abyss Church, of course, the potential of a venerable had limitless possibilities in the future. 10 minutes later, Su Qi passed through the Ripples Gateway opened by Jin Sanyuan and was directly transported to a vast floating piece of land. He saw at a glance the ancient, slightly grim, dark-style buildings on a colossal fragment of land. Numerous people queued up in the back. Jin Sanyuan also took this opportunity to introduce the current situation to Su Qi. Su Qi nodded slightly. A pioneering team, huh? He looked in the direction of the dark zone. While the energy surge caused ripples, like a red giant star nearing its end, it seemed to be gradually subsiding. Once it completely subsided, that would be everyone's chance to delve deeper. So, Venerable Iju, please follow me, Jin Sanyuan said with a smile. The other venerables have already arrived. I will take you to meet them. Su Qi nodded. That works. While he had been maintaining the identity of a venerable, frankly, he hadn't really used it much. But now, he was really going to use this status to delve deep into enemy territory. If his cover was blown here, it would be troublesome. The risks were extremely high, and only Su Qi would dare to enter this fire pit as an imposter. However, for Su Qi, this was not a big problem. No venerable had ever seen another, and although there were various faults, he would react on the spot and try to smooth things out as best as possible. As he and Jin Sanyuan entered the main hall, Su Qi heard Xiaomeng's voice in his ear. Master, I have detected your companions. They are on the other floating islands nearby. The floating islands were numerous, each dominated by top forces with substantial backgrounds. Is there a way to contact them? Su Qi asked softly. Their communicators are using technology provided by the mechanical army, so I might need some time to hack it and establish a remote connection. No problem. Su Qi assigned the task to Xiaomeng, who was still maintaining 95% of her computational power, fully committed to analyzing the heart of Divine Weapon. After all, it contained endless value. Every minute represented a treasure trove, so Su Qi generally refrained from having Xiaomeng handle more complex and cumbersome tasks. In other words, like using a graphics card to mine cryptocurrencies, dedicating all processing power to mining would be wasteful if used for gaming. Also, here is a set of encryption keys. Su Qi uploaded a key to Xiaomeng. Search around, and if there is a signal, help me connect directly. This is, Xiaomeng observed, such a complex key, Master. I might need some time to load it, but I will certainly complete the task well. Su Qi responded, Good. That's the spirit. This was by Qixing's chip core encryption key. Having mastered it, Su Qi had full control over Bai Qixing. However, before leaving that mechanical world, Su Qi had already communicated with Bai Qixing. His primary purpose was to make contact with the Divine Machinery Kingdom. And knowing that the Divine Machinery Kingdom had been destroyed, although Su Qi had considered revealing the truth to it, he let it seek contact with its counterparts among the mecha elites first. Su Qi suspected that the Divine Machinery Kingdom was not completely destroyed and that survivors still existed. Being able to contact a more powerful entity would naturally be a great asset. Of course, it remained to be seen whether Su Qi could turn this help into an ally. But that shouldn't be a problem. Su Qi excelled not only at drawing hatred, increasing enemies, but also at turning strangers into friends, and further into members of the Hustlers. The Hustlers were gathering many connections without realizing it. They were still in a phase of making points and conducting guerrilla tactics everywhere. Many fragmented forces scattered, nothing had yet coalesced, and the name of the Hustlers sect was not yet established. But Su Qi was not in a hurry. He had his own path in mind, and he had been silently laying down various anchor points that were now beginning to sprout in all aspects. And now he just needed to play the part of a venerable. However, when Su Qi stepped into the Grand Hall, the atmosphere did not seem as good as he had imagined. The many venerables, each with distinct appearances, were sitting calmly, indifferently, and proudly in the hall. Each one of them radiated a subdued aura unlike that of ordinary people. Some completely ignored the latecomer Su Qi, while others simply calmly sized him up. Within the venerable plan, although they were all selected as eccentric geniuses, they were also in competition with each other, each wanting to become the descender to receive the evil god's power. There was also a venerable, whose aura emitted from his body, revealed tremendous strength, with purple long hair. His eyes filled with a bit of strangeness. The surrounding venerables did not approach him. Their eyes showed indifference, wariness, and a bit of defiance. He glanced at Su Qi for a moment, and after finding nothing particularly special, he indifferently retracted his gaze. Jin Sanyuan, although aware of the tense atmosphere, was still at ease, with a gentle smile on his face. Lord Yi Ju, please take a seat over here. There were about 30 venerables present, each with their own title. To distinguish among themselves, they naturally addressed each other by their titles. Moreover, these were just the venerables received by the Hidden Killing Association. There were other top powers from the Abyss Camp, all of whom were gathering other venerables at this very moment. All right? Su Qi narrowed his eyes and walked toward his own seat with an unresponsive face behind his mask. But in reality, Su Qi had already noticed a venerable staring at him, and after he had taken his seat, the venerable spoke up with a slightly hoarse voice. Are you Yi Ju? Not cool, man, who are you? Su Qi, wearing his mask, nodded slightly, his voice deep. And you are? Don't you remember me? He narrowed his eyes. Drat. There was an acquaintance. Venerables generally operated alone and did not meet, but this situation had occurred. Su Qi still calmly replied, Should I remember you? He instead let out a light chuckle. Should I say you have a large forgetfulness? Or is it arrogance? Following that, he just slowly closed his eyes and said no more. And Su Qi, narrowing his eyes, was looking at the question mark above the other's head. The other's silence giving him more time to gather information. He had many weaknesses now. Without the power of pollution like the tattoo-like evil god totem and various other things that were different from the other venerables. So, Su Qi had to get a handle on things as soon as possible to reduce weaknesses. After all, looking around at the shadows, there were many projections slowly appearing from distant places. He glanced and saw. The connection of an Abyss Apostle of Sequence 6 is in progress. The connection of an Abyssal Powerhouse of Sequence 5 is in progress. The space of this grand hall had been arranged by an Abyss ceremony, establishing a connection with the higher echelons of the Abyss Church. This was an internal meeting of the Venerables, which was likely to outline subsequent actions and reveal important strategies. It really is like walking on a cliff's edge. Suchi appeared unflappable. But he was internally gathering all sorts of information at full force and had even prepared various contingency plans, including escape plans should he be exposed. After all, he was at the heart of the venerable plan, and he had now stepped into this most secretive meeting. The host, Jin Sanyuan, although a sequencer of rank 6, could only wait outside the main gate at the moment. More and more phantoms were slowly appearing, and images of other venerables also began to gather in various grand halls, all waiting for the meeting to commence. And about half an hour later, the number of phantoms had reached a terrifying amount, and from beginning to now they had been utterly silent, with eerie and powerful auras faintly being emitted. Everyone seemed to be waiting for something, and the many venerables also unconsciously sat up straight and serious, their expressions solemn. Although they were all very arrogant, the appearance of so many senior powerhouses naturally brought with it a certain wariness. Venerables might have limitless potential, but unrisen venerables were just disposable pieces within the church. And someone was even busier than them, that was Suchi. Damn it, that damn apostle. They didn't say there would be so many powerful beings, spoke Suchi, though outwardly leaning back in his seat with a casual demeanor. His heart was already swearing. He wasn't making much movement. Right now, more actions meant more mistakes. Once he was exposed, there would be big trouble. The many phantoms continued to wait in silence. And another half an hour passed. A strange energy enveloped the area, and everyone felt an eerie oppression coming from all around. Boom! Every venerable shuddered, including the many illusory figures who began to bow, exhibiting an attitude of utter submission. Suchi's pupils slightly contracted as his spiritual eyes quietly pulsed. What was thought to be a small gathering now appeared to be a top-secret meeting with substantial import. For the arriving illusory figures were the most powerful forces of the present world. Welcome, undying priest. The venerables prepared to bow and kneel on one knee, but the undying priest extended a hand, and a powerful force stiffened everyone's bodies. A calm voice came. Each of you may potentially be chosen by the Great One as a vessel for the descent, so you must not kneel. The venerables slowly straightened themselves. Suchi narrowed his eyes, gazing at the figure before him, the terrifying strength of Sequence 2. This direct and unique sense of oppression was different. And behind this undying priest was another figure, face unclear, very mysterious. Suchi was about to continue scrutinizing the figure carefully, knowing that one must be extremely cautious in such situations. Such terrifying beings, even the slightest of your movements could hardly escape their eyes. Of course, it would not be a big problem just looking along with the other venerables. But as Suchi lifted his head, he suddenly felt an inexplicable chill, for he found the mysterious figure behind the undying priest seemed to be looking at him. This chill that came in an instant caused a myriad of thoughts in Suchi's heart to burst forth. But the next moment, that gaze disappeared as quickly as it came, as if it had returned to silence, or perhaps it was just an illusion. However, from beginning to end, Suchi remained perfectly still, his masked face betraying no emotion. Just that inside he was experiencing a few changes. He had also seen the question mark above this mysterious figure's head. You High Spirit King. The undying priest slowly raised his head. Now, all of you here must be ready. Amidst the grand tides of the recovery of the old era, its voice seemed to come from the abyss, to welcome the arrival of the new era. At this very moment, on a faraway floating island, Bai Yilan and others were already verifying qualifications for recruitment, and the Evernight commerce was very strict. From strength, traits, and so on they took careful consideration. Their strength was quite formidable among ordinary sequencers, so there were no issues. Shandian was directly treated as a portable mechanical dog and entered alongside Bai Yilan and the others. The wristwatch is your identity, communication, and other tools, and it will also record your points, among other things. A commerce employee was leading them to familiarize themselves with the regulations. Shandian whispered softly, "The employees of Evernight Commerce. All of them wear various prosthetics, It's incredible, some of them are very powerful to have developed to this extent. And everyone is very strong, murmured Jiangxi. It's no wonder they are a top commerce guild. Even the registration employees have the strength of 7th rank. They walked further inside, and there was still some time before they would enter the dark zone. Naturally, they needed to familiarize themselves with this place. And once they entered the Evernight Pioneer group, each of them would receive a set of equipment. Various active prosthetics, able to perfectly meld with the body, weapons and equipment capable of unleashing the body's potential. By the way, Big Brother, Jiangxi couldn't help but inquire of the employee before him. I've noticed something. Why are there so many people queuing up for Evernight Commerce? And even though many don't seem strong, they appear distinguished? Bai Yilan paused slightly. He had also observed this. Many looking like rich second generations, young masters, scions of powerful families queuing at Evernight Commerce. Gathering. Different from other powers. The employee paused, looking at them strangely. It seems you're new here. He looked towards those queuing outside. At least 2/5 of these people. They've come for star chasing. Chasing celebrities? Jiangxi was taken aback, to tell the truth. He hadn't paid much attention to the present world since arriving here. A frown flitted across Bai Yilan's brow. I saw they were also carrying holographic banners. On them was written, Nancy, a very familiar name. Bai Yilan suddenly paused. It seems I've seen this name on many advertising spaces on the streets before. Brother Long, do you know it? Long Sun nodded. I know this name. Not only does he possess the powerful abilities of Sequence 6, but he's also a superstar across several boundary regions of Emberlane, with countless fans. He looked around, and the other party is also a favorite of the young Master Spirit King, the sole spokesperson for Everyday Commerce. At that moment, a few people were waving holographic fireworks sticks. Please support Lord Nancy. Thank you. Sorry to trouble you. What is this all about? Jiangxi was confused. The person grinned. Lord Nancy is about to arrive here. Naturally, we need to show support. And rest assured, all supporters will be rewarded with spirit coins by Nancy's fan club behind us. Please. Bai Yilan and Long Sun dumbfoundedly accepted the support items they distributed. What kind of fan club is this? So hardcore? They even distribute spirit coins. Jiangxi stared at the support items, which included 100 spirit coins, his eyes bulging. The staff member hesitated. They are probably the offspring of some extraordinary families, with several Sequence 5 or even higher entities behind them. However, you don't really need to worry. This won't affect the progression of the pioneering team. They are also here to compete for opportunities. Every one of them possesses extremely powerful strength. Put simply, chasing celebrities was a hobby, but they also had the fighting power to contest opportunities. After the staff member gave some more instructions, he left to guide other newcomers. Jiangxi muttered, These are other people's children. Not only do they have background money, but also possess great strength. Even in such a place, they can still spare the time to chase celebrities. Damn, envy can kill. Long Sun consoled him by patting his shoulder. Don't be angry. Haven't you joined the Hustlers sect? The future is promising. Jiangxi. Better not to mention it, it only made him angrier. Let's go. Bai Yilan, holding the support items, started moving. It's said there's still about half an hour to go. Are you really going? Jiangxi's eyes widened. I wouldn't chase after a man for 100 spirit coins. I'd rather give them back. Of course, if it were a female group, he could have shouted very loudly. We're not going to chase celebrities, but to gather information, Long Sun quietly said. Do you really think those top forces that can make it this far would engage in celebrity chasing here? In this dark zone on the brink of beginning, undertows are quietly turning. Every force, every action. Nothing is that simple. Long Sun dropped a meaningful remark and followed along. Is that so? Jiangxi paused for a moment. Brother Shandian, what do you think? Shandian lay on his shoulder. I don't know. But when Lord Bai Qixing was cracking the chip data from Sirius, he seemed to have found some strange footage and said something. What did he say? It seems like it's a cage controlled by countless chains. Whether it's from the outside or inside, at the moment of breaking through, it will completely tear apart everything on the surface. At this moment, in the top-level space of everyday commerce, a middle-aged man was sitting at a desk, dealing with thousands of holographic data streams, exuding an aura of authority, adorned with various signs of prosthetic augmentations. And then, a holographic window appeared on the desk of the middle-aged man. Mr. Simon, Vice President. 3 medium constant star-level forces have sent orders, wanting to buy prosthetic equipment sets of model number 3 in bulk at a low price. Simon's brow slightly furrowed. Their price is too low. Don't respond for now. We can't give them the chance to pressure us. Understood, Mr. Simon, Vice President. The assistant's voice came from the inside, and as for why the title Vice President had to be added, it was Simon's request, leading many to speculate who the real president of everyday commerce was. But so far it remains a secret. Afterward, Simon received many messages from all sides, all from various interstellar forces trades, conversations, and invitations. And then, a being with strong aura tore through space to arrive, possessing the mighty power of Sequence 6, a guard arranged for Simon by the son of the Spirit King, and Xingho. Mr. Simon, the young master said for you to go ahead, and he will withstand the pressure from all sides. Okay. Simon nodded. Thank you, Jian Xing. Small matter, after all, it was young master's command. After the Night City incident and Xinghe, the son of the Spirit King, was roped in by Su Qi, and then, with support and various strategic development, everyday commerce forcibly squeezed into the top commerce companies. Of course, its current status was not yet stable, still coveted by many potent forces, after all, a force without much background or heritage, to have come this far without being devoured by the numerous forces. Relied on the endorsement of the son of the Spirit King, and Xingho, and the deterrence of the Spirit King's name. Of course, Simon knew this wasn't sustainable. Where are Mr. Nancy and Mr. Sigong? As a guard, Jian Xing not only protected their safety, he also participated in some affairs and meetings. They should be arriving soon. Mr. Sigong brings with him the new generation of equipment technology along with a large batch of products. As for Mr. Nancy, Simon said softly, he's expected to meet with fan clubs soon to create some buzz. The current situation is not good, he said. Although their products had established a solid foundation under the Super Dream subsystem left behind by Su Buxian, with each passing day, everything was changing, and even mechanical product technologies had encountered a standstill. It was very difficult to make another breakthrough. They had now lost their new research and development strength, and many forces wanted their core technologies. There was suppression and threat. The pressure from all sides was immense. Unable to help himself, Simon took out an old cigar. Even as the vice president of a top-tier power now, commanding countless strong individuals and revered by many, he still kept his old habit of enjoying a cigar in the dilapidated slum, whether busy or idle. And if it weren't for Chairman Su Buxian changing his fate, he might still be in that shabby shop with no sight of tomorrow. Chairman, oh Chairman, where are you now? Simon sighed softly. The pioneering team has already been organized, Jian Xing said softly. The upcoming star meeting will decide each party's entry path. The goal of all forces this time was that dark zone before them. That place was naturally crucial. As a subordinate directly under the young master, he was naturally privy to some insider information. All the forces were surging behind the scenes, and the 7 Spirit Kings were quietly hiding, preparing for a big move. This was a fuse connecting the present world and abyss, and countless individuals wanted to vie for a spark in this conflagration. And when the explosion came, it would inevitably cause ripples that shook the entire present world. This time, Jian Xing spoke softly, it is even more dangerous than you can imagine, and the existing balance will be disrupted. If everyday commerce really wants to rise, it's not the various products that you depend on, but your true strength. Simon's heart sank slightly, and he nodded. We will accomplish this. Their Chamber of Commerce and the son of the Spirit King had a cooperative relationship, and naturally, under the Spirit King lay a powerful force of their own. And this time, as Jian Xing said, the balance would be disrupted. The previously peaceful situation would unleash the prelude to utter chaos. At that time, they could no longer rely on the banner of the Spirit King, because Jian Xing had already subtly hinted that the forces of the Spirit King might be embroiled in intense struggles, unable to extricate themselves amidst the great upheaval. Simon sighed softly within his heart once more. They were, in the end, just a chamber of commerce, having accumulated a vast wealth and reputation, grown into a first- or second-tier power in a short time. Their foundation and strength were entirely reliant on the name of the Spirit King. Without this banner, they would not be sufficient. They could be consumed at any time by those truly vast forces and other coveting powers around them. Therefore, this time, the Dark Zone was crucial. Chaos was an opportunity. Also, this time, I'll be joining the expedition, Jian Xing added after a pause. Simon was taken aback. But aren't you 7th rank? The ripples of the Dark Zone would suppress any existence above the 7th rank. I'll seal away that part of the strength of Sequence 6, Jian Xing said softly. This time, it's not just me. There will surely be a group of Sequence 6 doing the same. Simon nodded his head. Also, Jian Xing said gravely, there's one more thing. All the other commerce chambers at your level have been taken under by the Hidden Killing Association. Simon felt a slight heaviness in his heart. The Hidden Killing Association? That galaxy-level power? Galaxy-level powers. They towered above constant star-level powers, their scale vast as a galaxy, truly first-rate superpowers with members spread across the 10,000 realms. And above them were the realm-level powers, the current pinnacle of the present world. Apart from the 7 Spirit Kings, there were few others. They don't get along with us? Jian Xing warned. Remember to avoid them as much as possible. Simon took a deep breath. Understood. He watched Jian Xing disappear from the place, then rubbed his aching brow, wanting to handle the situation but feeling somewhat irritated. After about half an hour, Simon could not resist pulling out another cigar, walking up to the top-floor window, looking down at the large gathering of 7th-rank individuals, and let out a faint sigh. Sighing again? Sigong Chang, looking travel-worn, pushed the door and walked in. As a middle-aged man serving as a manager and core of the research and development team, he had always worked behind the scenes. Can't help it, on top of what we knew before, we've just learned a lot more bad news, Simon said upon seeing Sigong Chang, visibly relaxing. They had been cooperating seamlessly for half a year. As a leader, one naturally has to bear a certain amount of pressure. And Nancy also gradually revealed himself. Mr. Nancy, this is just my holographic image. I'm still meeting with the fan group right now. Came over here to catch my breath, Nancy said helplessly, adjusting his suit tie. Simon gave a wry smile and shared some newly acquired information with them. It looks like things are truly about to get chaotic, Nancy keenly sensed. He was a smart man. When in Night City, Nancy had detected the covert struggle between the Spirit Kings amidst the murderous atmosphere brimming on the scene. Waves were surging, and now he could also see the future situation, or rather, every one of the upper-tiered forces had smelled this wild tempest. I wonder where that guy is? He said softly. Given that guy's character, he wouldn't miss such a major upheaval. Simon hesitated. Are you talking about the chairman, Mr. Nancy? He calls himself a chairman, my ass. The Chamber of Commerce was left behind without him showing his face, Nancy said in a low voice. And then there's the hustlers sect that he always brags about. I have proactively searched countless times in the past 6 months, and haven't even found an organization with a similar name. That guy probably knows nothing right now, living carefree. Nancy paused. However, if he were to see the Hustlers' Chamber of Commerce has developed to this extent, I bet that kid's expression would be priceless. At this very moment, while Nancy was voicing his complaints to Sigong Chang and Simon through the holographic remote in his office, he was also being enveloped by screams and the brightness of holographic support, all while looking dashing in his white suit at the central area. He smiled and waved his hand, and countless fans responded. And Nancy had no bodyguards. just his team who had always followed him. Some fans rushed forward in a frenzy, but they were repelled by a powerful force. After all, Nancy's strength had already reached sequence 6. All the screams, declarations of love, shouts, and the glory of support bloomed along the way. Bai Yilan and the others were squeezed to the very outer layer. "Look! This is what a superstar is like," Jiang Ji said enviously. "Does our hustlers sect have such a superstar?" Bai Yilan paused. "We do. Brother Su, in a sense, is also very famous." Jiang Ji cursed. "Bounty rankings don't count." Long Sun was slightly startled. What bounty rankings? At this moment, this place was already packed like a sea of people. For Nancy, who had grown accustomed to such scenes, it wasn't anything big, as he had other important matters at hand. That was to sell the batch of newly developed products, gathering more spirit coins and resources to arm everything possible as a trump card for this pioneering venture. After all, this time, Nancy was also going to seal his strength and participate in this pioneering initiative. It lasted about half an hour. "It's over." Bai Yilan watched as Nancy disappeared into the ripples of everyday commerce, with many fans still reluctant to leave. "Shandian, what do you think?" Shandian paused for a moment. "I think we can give it a try." In short, Shandian would bring out some kind of blueprint in exchange for better benefits or a higher position. Jiang Ji paused. "But the problem is, how do we make contact? You know we can't even push through this crowd now, let alone get in touch with these big shots." Bai Yilan pondered. They were after all weak and alone, if they wanted to establish better living conditions and explore opportunities in the dark zone. They could only try their best to compete. "Let's give it a try first." On the other side, "Venerable, the meeting has ended. Please rest well," Jin Sanyuan said to Su Qi with a sycophantic smile. "After all, you must attend the star meeting tomorrow, representing the Hidden Killing Association." Su Qi nodded slightly. "You may go." Jin Sanyuan. "Yes, Venerable, I take my leave." Su Qi returned to his room and, after confirming that there was no other surveillance, slowly removed his mask. "Xiao Meng." "Master, I am here." Xiao Meng had just rebooted from a crash. In order not to reveal any flaws at that meeting, Su Qi had completely shut down the Super Dream Protocol, concealing everything about himself that could be exposed, including the curse on his body, the blue mark on his palm, the patterns on his arms, and the ancient relic on his brow. Well, it seemed like quite a lot. However, Su Qi had concealed them all with silence of all things, which could affect others, so it surely could be used on himself as well. Add to that the fact that he did not resist them, he could silence all these traits, covering them with the power of the spiritual eyes. As long as the other party did not specifically look for them, there would be no flaws revealed. In fact, the undying priest had indeed not noticed him. But Su Qi narrowed his eyes. The one behind it, the chill at that moment, the feeling of being watched, although fleeting, could very well have been an illusion created by a high-pressure environment. However, Su Qi did not believe in illusions. He was certain the other party had noticed him. "Yuhai Spirit King," Su Qi murmured. This was a super figure in the present world, one of the 7 spirit kings, with whom Su Qi likely had some unresolved issues. During the event in Night City, Su Qi had sabotaged young Master Yohai's plans, almost killing him and, like a chain reaction, seemed to interfere with the Yuhai Spirit King's arrangements. But how had the other party noticed him, and after noticing him, did they see through his identity? If they saw through him, why didn't they reveal it? These series of questions made Su Qi's thoughts run rampant, and he was not particularly surprised about the close ties between the Yuhai Spirit King and the Abyss Church. After all, from previous actions, it was clear that the Yuhai Spirit King's movements were aligned with the goals of the Abyss Church, which was to break the balance. Moreover, the other party was also a member of the highest echelon of the Abyss Church, just like the Undying Priest. Yuhai Spirit King. Su Qi squinted his eyes, planning his next moves in his heart. After all, he had been part of their meeting, gaining insight into the vast outline of this dark zone. The Dark Zone was a massive grindstone, where countless lower beings of the world were situated, all ground into blood mist to complete the grand ritual. At that time, the evil god would descend, numerous ancient worlds would recover, and the day of recovery would be the day of limit breaking. The present world would undergo tremendous changes. Su Qi's eyes began to throb slightly. At this moment, many light years away from the land of extreme evil, the undying priest of the Abyss Church and the Yuhai Spirit King, who stood with his hands behind his back, were slowly sitting at an old stone table. "Is everything arranged now?" the Yuhai Spirit King asked with a light smile, sipping tea. Naturally, the gaunt-faced undying priest, pale and terrifying, but with an abundance of blood running through his body, surrounded by countless corpses turned into mummies. All their blood had been drained by him. Since waking up, he had been using all kinds of methods to recover his strength, and naturally, the resources of the Abyss Church were vast. In just half a year, he had recovered to the Sequence 3, a speed that surpassed countless others from ancient times who had awakened. The cost was huge, however, as he was now like the living dead. If not for his bloodline traits, he probably would have shattered his sequence path due to the rapid recovery of his strength. The undying priest also picked up his wine glass, which contained not the same tea as the Yuhai Spirit King, but crimson blood. "This time we shall declare to all dimensions. The Abyss Church has returned." Boundless terror was about to overturn everything. The Yuhai Spirit King smiled calmly, raising his cup. "Then let me congratulate you in advance." The undying priest did not respond, merely sipping the blood gently. The Yuhai Spirit King did not mind and smilingly downed his cup. "Then, priest, I shall make my preparations." "Go ahead," said the priest calmly. The Yuhai Spirit King vanished into the ripples, still on this planet, though he had entered a special space within his sequence. Dark Sea, where he could see destiny. Yuhai Spirit King. The undying priest watched the ripples where the Yuhai Spirit King had disappeared, and his mouth curled into a cold smile. "What kind of secrets do you still have?" The Abyss Church and the Yuhai Spirit King were in a partnership, as the only awakened priest of the Abyss Church now was him. Others had yet to return. Of course, this power was already considerable, with numerous forces quietly becoming part of the Abyss Church. And the Yuhai Spirit King had already established a close connection with the Abyss Church beforehand. But it still couldn't see through that person. Do not underestimate the Spirit Kings. They had become the topmost existences in the present world, proving each one to be a super being amongst billions. And the only thing limiting them was the rule of the broken sequence of the present world. Once recovered, the path of Ceres could be reconnected. These Spirit Kings are likely able to cross multiple thresholds, possibly having the greatest potential to reach the level of a god. But it's not important. No one can interfere with the progress of the Abyss Church, not even these Spirit Kings. The undying priest slowly stood up and walked toward the edge of the peak. Below, rumble, billions of various monsters were devouring the black chaotic liquid like an army. Around them, there were even more ripples, all filled with space fragments from the top forces under the Abyss Church. A multitude of extraordinary beings had long since lain dormant. They were all waiting for the moment when the Dark Land burst forth. And entering the Dark Sea, the Yuhai Spirit King slowly stepped onto the center of an island in the vast Dark Sea. He slowly concealed the expression he had revealed before the undying priest, his eyes showing mixed emotions. The Yuhai Spirit King slowly extended his hand, with countless black chains connecting to the surrounding phantom starry sky. Gradually, blurred figures appeared among them. Among them were various divine sons, descendants, and the like, all connected to the Deep Star River above. After all, the Yuhai Spirit King had established the largest information organization, encompassing a multitude of recovering beings, brilliant talents. Most of them were recorded here, and now he was calculating some kind of probability. But soon, he saw a multitude of zeros. Each one was minuscule and pitiful. The probability likely was even less than 0.0000001%. The Yuhai Spirit King calmly watched this scene. Among them was also the figure of Su Buxian slowly appearing. He had noticed this young man on the Rainbow Bridge. His probability was strange. Sometimes it was 0, sometimes like others, and sometimes it turned into garbled code, unable to display. It often fluctuated, causing the Yuhai Spirit King to take notice of him. And this time, this young man had actually come to the grand gathering of the Abyss Church, and moreover as a venerable. Of course, this young man was actually hiding very well. Unfortunately, the Yuhai Spirit King himself had the extraordinary traits of collecting information, and he had meticulously probed all the venerables. So when he saw Su Buxian at a glance, he already knew this young man's true face. Naturally, a mask could not block oneself. Pretending to be a venerable, to come here, the Yuhai Spirit King checked the information within the Dark Sea. The original venerable was named Yi Ju. Sequence is, a photo and some other information about the person also appeared before him. It seems he has been killed. The Yuhai Spirit King calmly submerged all the information back into the Dark Sea, his expression revealing neither joy nor anger. Little guy, you probably still don't know that your identity has been exposed. Nor do you know exactly who I am. But it doesn't matter. I am very interested in what you will do next. The star meeting was being held in sequence with time, on the second day. Innumerable people were waiting in the extreme evil city, 99.99% of them without the qualifications to enter the central area, but each was ready to enter the Dark Land. Boom boom! A huge explosion sounded in the central area. Numerous eyes flickered. It's starting. Star meeting. Numerous powerful forces gather together. They are delineating the future directions, and we must choose which route to follow. At this moment, within the star meeting, as everyone said, there was a strict hierarchical atmosphere. All the lower constant star level forces were only allowed on the periphery of the assembly, managing over a dozen worlds each but barely having the right to observe, while the medium constant star level forces with hundreds of worlds sat in the middle area. But the higher constant star level, mostly consisting of controllers of thousands of worlds, sat in the very front, with a small portion being quite special, such as certain powerful descendants, energetic life forms, divine sons with strong divinity, and various other influential beings. And the everyday commerce was also among them, a special part indeed, after all, with the flag of the Spirit King, and also having spent a substantial amount of spirit coins to purchase these superior seats. Nancy, Simon, and 3 others were sitting there, somewhat not fitting in with the powerful aura around them. Don't be nervous. Nancy communicated by sound transmission. Don't mind the gazes of others. Simon took a deep breath. I know. Their development had indeed been rapid, but this kind of occasion was still too grand for them. And in the central area were the premium seats. Only 70 seats arranged in a circle, but those who could sit in these seats were the galaxy-level forces. Each force was tremendously large, backed by at least one sequence 2 extraordinary existence. Hidden Killing Association sat among them, and Su Qi, slightly touching his mask, was also a member. However, he was only responsible for attending as an observer. Jean Sanyuan was negotiating with other galaxy-level forces. Facing numerous gazes, he was not nervous, but watched the leaders of these forces argue coldly and brutally. Their words did not reach the outside world. They were unreserved. Some forces, a bit sinister in nature, spoke bluntly about how many people they would use to fill in, break through, treating countless adventurers as cannon fodder, in exchange for information from other forces. Some were indifferent. You are doing this a bit too much. Inhumane. They fought for the various ripple gateways leading to the Dark Zone, as it was clear to everyone that this dark land and the ancient world were connected. Some forces seemed to be searching for some relics, some were tied with the ancient world, and others had openly indicated that they had found their own divine coordinates. These massive powers, which one did not have an ancient background. What can I say? This place is all about interests and struggles over the future. Su Qi looked at the numerous forces below. This area is followers observing. Most forces are making the most crucial choices. As for Su Chi looked towards, outside this central area, at countless adventurers. Are those people merely the cannon fodder and tools decided by them? TSK. That was the tragedy of the lower layers. Everyone knew that the biggest change in the present world was about to happen, and the people below could only turn into gold seekers in the torrent. Of course, those who were crushed into fragments by the torrent were the majority. Those who could find gold were few and far between, and even fewer could stand their ground. As for the realm-level forces, in other words, the existence of the 7 Spirit Kings, they did not appear in the star meeting. But Su Chi knew, around the land of extreme evil, their power was firmly surrounded, along with various unknown undercurrents. And those 3 guys. Su Chi looked at the somewhat hesitant and unnatural Simon and the others. He had noticed their presence as soon as he entered, and also saw the Everyday Commerce's emblem. Let's see. Su Chi already knew about the existence of Everyday Commerce since yesterday. After all, Nancy was quite famous. He acknowledged that he had some following completely capable of live streaming to sell goods. He's been selling, then no problem. But now he also had no way to contact them, so he let it be. Good news, the Hustler sect had money. Bad news, the Hustler sect hierarch had become part of the enemy. Time ticked away second by second. The star meeting was still ongoing. All safe zones leading to the dark zone had been completely devoured. All coordinates of the ancient world probed had been divided up. And regarding the content of the core area, the galaxy-level forces kept quiet about it as if it was a taboo, because although everything there was unknown, they all understood in their hearts that the balance before them was already the last. That time was when everyone would truly shed their outer layers. At the same time, the dark zone seemed to have lost patience. A burst, like that from a black hole in deep space, vibrating like Hong Zhong. Everyone's eardrums hurt, as if their spirits were being shocked. Only Su Chi slightly stirred. This sound. Why do I feel like I've heard it before? It wasn't that Su Chi was too friendly. He truly felt the sound was familiar. Ever since the demon eye appeared and he knew he was the same guy who had camped out in that small town back then, all the mysteries within the core of the dark zone had become less mysterious to Su Chi. And this rumble, reminiscent of a bell, naturally led Su Chi to think of the prayer bell sound of Killing Demon Town from before. Such outright authority caused everyone around to be mentally shaken. It was hard to imagine what the inside had become now. Meanwhile, that bell sound seemed to mark the moment to enter the dark zone, as countless energies burst forth, releasing rapidly, with the original dark vortex erupting in sequence with phenomena of heaven and earth. A plethora of brilliance. Ancient scenes unfolded one after another. No matter where one stood in the land of extreme evil, they would see it. Like a cascade of astral waterfalls, all sorts of phantasms and spectacles pouring out. Within were numerous ancient scenes on the verge of recovery, and at the same time, the terror of the old days and the abyss spread throughout deep space. Some people watched in shock. Suddenly, their ears were filled with an extremely sharp buzzing sound, and their eyes began to issue blood. Danger! Do not look directly. A deep voice spread throughout the area. All those below 5th rank, who have not stepped into the extraordinary, close your eyes immediately. At the same time, due to the burst of this force, even though they were separated by the distance of starry space, still a large number of fragmented planets were flung into disarray. These fragmenting meteorites shot out at high speed in all directions. Rumbling. Extreme Evil City and its ritual fluctuations. An energy shield rose to block the oncoming meteorites caused by the burst. And the force continued to erupt, desolation and ancient powerful fluctuations, like overwhelming waves, rolled up countless space versions of mirages. Those who were not extraordinary simply could not look directly at them. Of course, there were those who were not afraid of death, or those endowed with various bloodlines, treasures, and divine sons who, despite the impact, wanted to see even a glimpse. Only, this was an extraordinary scene. Even with all their tricks, they experienced a backlash like severe injury in the blink of an eye. their complexions turning instantly pale without a trace of blood. Their minds too were flooded with a multitude of all kinds of twisted colors. They had to hurriedly shut their eyes, suppressing those twists, driving them out. And Su Qi was naturally one of those not afraid to die. Of course, he felt no pressure. The abyss, home of the evil god, the ancient world consumed by the old days. He had touched upon them himself. All buddies. How's looking twice any trouble? Of course, the main reason was that Su Qi had broken through to 7th rank. His spiritual power surged, touching the threshold of the extraordinary. Furthermore, with the spiritual eyes to boost his spiritual power, he could clearly see all that was not meant to be seen. A great deal of ruin, scenes from the old days twisted and displayed across the sky. He could see indescribable things, strange tides, the abstract horror of the old days in black and white. It has a bit of the feeling when I first entered the polluted world, seeing all the crumbling. The first time Su Qi came in contact with the polluted world, it was filled with unknown dangers of terror everywhere. And now, the feeling was the same. This dark zone was also full of various lethal dangers for him at his current stage. Only, his hidden cards were more numerous now, his connections wider. Of course, the enemies he could group together were also several teams worth. Su Qi continued to observe some of the scenes at the intersection of black and white. Others were existent, raising various questions. One by one he looked: ancient battlefield, abyss fragment, world ship fragment, outer god relics, etc. all had traces to follow. There were also some black rivers, like dragons and snakes, intricately interwoven within. After roughly less than 10 seconds of observing, Su Qi's spiritual eyes trembled slightly, and the power of the evil god showed signs of bursting forth again. All right, calm down, evil god. No more looking, no more looking. Su Qi hurriedly closed his eyes, but the information he got was plentiful enough. This fluctuation didn't last long, and 10 seconds after Su Qi closed his eyes, it began to rumble and dissipate, turning into strange ancient mists within the starry part of the dark zone. Meanwhile, the dark zone finally began to calm down slowly. At its deepest part, there was a dense change between light and dark like a black hole, while also emitting an astonishing presence, as if endless strength was converging within. Now, in the land of extreme evil, several beings of the 4th and 5th rank calmly switched off their protective rituals. It's time to depart. All forces of Star Meeting began to return quickly, with every pioneering team preparing for battle and exploration. A vast crowd began to surge, and Jin Sanyuan turned his head, followed by more than a dozen experts of Sequence 6 around him. Venerable Sir, let's go too. Ready to depart immediately. The dark zone at this moment finally opened up completely. Everyone from just a moment ago had seen endless possibilities. Relics, miracles, all things unknown. All seemed to be beckoning to them. All right. Su Qi tapped lightly on his armrest, and a smile appeared on his masked face. Let's depart. Everyone began to enter separately, following different paths of ripples. Everyday commerce was also on the move. Bai Yilan silently donned the mechanical equipment released, watching the crowds that swirled around him. The departure is more urgent than one would imagine. However, everyone's enthusiasm is not to be said. It's quite high. Jiang Ji looked around at the excited and agitated people, eager to carve out a piece of the world and change their fates. Unfortunately, the brothers from the Meteor Alliance have already gone to another team ahead of us, he said regretfully. It would have been even better if we were together. Anyway, we'll be departing soon. Long Sun also touched the dragon scale hidden on his body. This time is completely different from before. Before, everyone could still come and go 7 times, constantly exploring and then returning for supplies, but now according to the news that has come out, once you enter this time, there is no retreat. Shandian, aren't you going to communicate with Senior Bai Qixing? Bai Yilan paused before speaking. Shandian shook his head. No need. I'll move with you guys. Lord Bai Qixing has other arrangements in place. Actually, it didn't know much, only that Lord Bai Qixing had ordered it to follow Su Buxian's companions and provide help. But what Lord Bai Qixing was up to remains a mystery. Countless people are heading into the dark zone. Su Qi appeared on the open ground outside the coordinate ripples, wearing a mask. Standing next to him were 3 other venerables. Behind them was a pioneering team of several thousand people, including cannon fodder, useful tools, and some powerful elites. Also hiding among them were Abyss believers. "It looks like the 4 of us will have to join forces," said a venerable in a suit, smiling with a cigar clenched in his teeth and shining his glossy shoes. "Pleasure to cooperate with you." The purple-haired venerable, who had previously incited everyone's wariness, did not answer and remained expressionless. The bald venerable, covered in black tattoos, merely nodded coldly as well, as a response. On the contrary, Su Qi was enthusiastically shaking his hand. "Good. Pleased to cooperate." The suited venerable squinted with a chuckle. "All right, let's go." He understood the purple-haired and bald venerable. Both wielded immense power among the venerables. But the masked venerable Ju in front of him was also someone he had heard of, someone merely known for dabbling in spiritual hypnosis and cultivating chaotic evildoers, a venerable without much fame. Although each venerable represents terror, danger, and power in the eyes of ordinary people, there naturally exists a strong hierarchical division among the venerables themselves. And as they walked toward the ripple's passage at the same time, a dozen dark shadows also moved in unison, all followers arranged by the Hidden Killing Association. Each one originally possessed 6th rank strength, but all were sealed to 7th rank. One purpose was to clear the path and protect the venerables, and they also carried other missions. In fact, during the Star meeting, many powers had already stopped pretending, and some forces of the Abyss were unabashedly revealing themselves. Everyone knew it well inside. And there were also some who stood on the side of chaos, like grass on top of a wall waiting for everything to burst forth, the prelude to start. Only then would they choose whether to stand with the Abyss or the present world. Only a small part represented the order forces of the present world, with faces that were always grim and somber, a group dwelling on the cruel division of the many lives of the present world. Yet they felt powerless and couldn't tear their faces right here. Outbursts here were just pointless strife, especially since they were at a disadvantage. In the dark zone, however, was where everyone began to upset the balance, and all fighting would have the clearest stance. Speaking of which, having already shaken hands with the suited man, Su Qi naturally didn't hesitate to start chatting with him. This time, there seemed to be a few venerables, who have also reached 6th rank, very strong. The suited venerable took a puff on his cigar, squinting. "There are a few, but whether it's 6th rank or 7th rank, it doesn't matter. The great true God won't care about our feeble strengths. The will of the true God will choose the most suitable person for it. Moreover," he sneered, looking at the ripples ahead, "how much strength can they exert inside there?" Su Qi snapped his fingers. "I think so too. When the time comes, we'll just smash their damn heads." The suited man looked at the somewhat unruly Su Qi. Although surprised, he was not too taken aback. Every venerable has their own personality and pride, and of course, as long as they don't hinder him, it doesn't matter. Moreover, this time, although there was competition among the venerables in the early stage, it was mainly for the execution of the plan. Only when Lord Evil God descended would they burst into the final contest. Moreover, the other 2 venerables were indifferent and had no intention of conversing. They, along with the thousands in the pioneering team, were stepping toward a designated coordinate with ripples. "Let's go. It's time to begin." And Su Qi smiled slightly, stepping forward to follow. At the same time, the various covers on his body were quietly being withdrawn, and his silent disguise slowly disappeared. Now, without the presence of those extraordinary powers from the Abyss Church, he could finally relax his restrictions. Moreover, there was Luo Xinfu. Su Qi's fingers also quietly revealed a ring, which he had previously placed into his item slot. Luo Xinfu had mentioned before falling asleep that its current slumber was for the recovery of strength, and although it seemed the recovery was not fast, it was still happening. Moreover, if it sensed danger, it would awaken immediately, or he could also summon it actively. However, Su Qi was not in a hurry. He was still integrating into the immortal path, practicing some of the magic formulas left by Luo Xinfu, which for now were sufficient. Moreover, Su Qi's hands were also quietly holding spirit coins, the coins gradually dissipating. Estimation: I still need to increase my spiritual energy by 100,000 before I can unlock the Immortal Way sequence's traits. Only then would the sequence be completely integrated into his body, and his strength would be fully manifested. In any case, the despicable person was about to return home. Su Qi stepped into the ripples. Meanwhile, on the other side, a small team had a group of odd characters wearing various concealment attire. They had not joined any pioneering team but were simply looking for opportunities to follow. The team was somewhat noisy, as if it was a long time since they had been on the outside, chattering incessantly. The person leading them, while holding his forehead, said in a low voice, "Shut up. All of you, be quiet." The one in the long robe cursed. "All of you, hide your identities well. We haven't entered the dark zone yet. Keep it low-key. Everyone, be careful." A youth beside him, his spiritual energy stirring, possessed an astonishing aura surpassing most of those at 7th rank, said softly, "Sorry, priest. We've cultivated for so long. Now is finally the time to test ourselves. It's hard to contain the excitement." A young man carrying a heavy sword also lifted his head. "I'm actually okay. It's just, my sword behind me can hardly wait." His sword behind him seemed to buzz with a high-pitched whine and a terrifying power contained within, ready to burst forth at any moment. All right. I know you guys are all extraordinary, each with your own unique skills." And the one known as priest, revealing that sallow face, raised an eyebrow and cursed, "But damn it, keep a low profile, all of you. Don't be like that damn sect hierarch." It was none other than the ordained priest of the Hustlers sect, Old Huang. Since the incident at the Rainbow Bridge, Old Huang had taken many who were left from the anxious land. Those who had escaped, settled on a certain planet, and started to develop, grow, using his priest experience to train them. And although they were originally ordinary people from various worlds, they were after all the chosen for an audience, and had obtained various opportunities. In just over half a year, almost everyone had reached 7th rank, a speed worthy of his title as a priest. And this time, Old Huang could naturally see that there was a significant upheaval and great opportunities ahead, and no super new star should miss out. Thus, he hastily and discreetly brought many members of the Hustlers, who were on the bounty list, here. The short-haired girl in black clothes couldn't help but say with hope, "Speaking of which, priest, will the sect hierarch appear in this place?" "Don't ask," Old Huang said with a dark face. "I don't know. That guy Su Buxian, he's like he's gone off the grid. Who knows where he is? It seems he's gotten addicted to being a hands-off manager." However, he could understand. After all, Su Buxian had attracted a lot of hateful gazes at that time, so naturally, he needed to hide more than they did. And then, Old Huang also vaguely felt the secret influence of the Abyss Church. He had also seen the recent burst in the Dark Zone, the Abyss, the evil god, the old day's strength. Old Huang shivered slightly. Damn it. Although he had guessed that this place was related to the evil god, he still took the risk to come here. It was indeed somewhat suicidal. "Su Buxian, you owe me too much." However, Mr. Huang Sr. was no ordinary person. He always knew that fortune comes with risks. He murmured to himself, trying to deduce. Given Su Buxian's character, he probably wouldn't miss this place, but that guy is smart. Knowing the danger of the Abyss Church and the terror of many top forces, he would definitely hide well, keeping a low profile and not stirring up trouble. But what he couldn't have known was that Su Buxian had not only stirred up trouble but had also become one of them, holding an important position, and was now striving for the evil god's descent, leading thousands as they were entering. The short-haired girl wanted to ask again, but Old Huang stretched out his hand, signaling everyone to prepare. "Over there, they've set off. Let's go and keep up. We'll follow along." In the distance, hundreds of forces were crossing over. Some ripples had already been fully occupied, with powerful entities blocking the way, forcing others to choose alternate passages. Among them, a pioneering team made up of mechanical prosthetics caught the eye of many members. They were ordinary people from various worlds. Many of them probably didn't even know before that beyond their world there was a universe. Now they were faced with all sorts of unseen things, each showing great curiosity. "Let's go," said the yellow-robed priest gently. "Follow the lead of these ripples." He naturally knew about the various movements within the star meeting and the ripples' paths in the dark zone. Some were confirmed safe routes, while others were chaotic and dangerous fragments. The traces there were ever-changing. Some paths meant getting closer to God. Anyway, this is no simple matter. It's a flood, an eruption, a change of situation, not moved by the strength of one person, but every person is a participant in this change. You guys from the Hustlers sect, if you want to follow in the footsteps of the sect hierarch, you need to show an unstoppable momentum, understand? Old Huang said calmly. Yes, priest. Although Old Huang had inwardly grumbled about Su Buxian countless times, since he had played the role of priest, he was highly professional, training all future core members with all his heart. And at the same time, he didn't forget to build up Su Buxian's prestige as the sect hierarch. After all, a sect that could truly grow, in the end, could only have one core and leader standing at the very top, the sect hierarch. He executed this to perfection. I've put myself all in here, Old Huang thought internally. Su Buxian. As everyone started moving, forces like Everyday Commerce and many others stepped in, with Old Huang leading his people to enter. The prologue of the Extremely Evil World event has begun. Current progress at 15%. Please note that any actions taken in the Dark Zone from now on may affect the future's direction. When progress reaches 100%, the final chapter will begin, and the Extremely Evil World's descent will come. Upon stepping into the ripples, Su Qi was automatically presented with such an information box. The notifications of Paradise events were for all players. Since he could see it, all other players had also received this information. The Extremely Evil World at 100% progress seems to indicate the abyss, the present world reviving the ancient world, and the rules of recovery. Indeed, the entire present world could be called an extremely evil world then. Also, Su Qi looked at the information above, finding another very important point. The future direction. He actually knew by now exactly what this meant. Not just the overt and covert struggles outside, but also within the Dark Zone. Vast and profound mysterious tug-of-war battles were ongoing. The world ship, the abyss, the old days were constantly combating each other on this chessboard of destiny, covered by powerful hands. One wrong move could welcome a different future. About 10 minutes after entering the ripples, Su Qi slowly saw a little twisted light emerge in the nihility. The coordinates of the ripples arranged by the Hidden Killing Association were naturally different from others, bypassing some peripheral worlds and directly crossing towards their desired or confirmed direction. And what they naturally wanted to contact was everything related to the Abyss ruins, the Abyss bishops, all the strength of the Abyss. After a brief distortion, everyone was sent directly in, stepping into the world. And once inside, everyone shivered, as if hit by a bone-chilling cold and extreme danger. Everyone, do not speak. The suited venerable, puffing on a cigar, immediately conveyed the information to everyone's minds with spiritual energy. Look ahead. Everyone looked up, their pupils slightly constricting. The place they were in was like an ancient battlefield, surrounded by various skeletons and ruined weapons. Upon the pile of skeletons in the middle there was only one, an elder with a broken blade in his arms, gaunt as if a corpse, his body riddled with various gruesome, terrifying scars. The old man seemed dead, yet he also seemed alive. For an ominous aura surrounded him, desolation and an icy chill instantly surged into everyone's hearts. Su Qi also glanced over. He knew that entering the Dark Zone now would be very different from before, but he hadn't expected that as soon as they entered, there would already be a difference. Paradise guidance has been activated. Character encountered. Sword Heart. With his strength alone, he has slain tens of thousands of abyss monsters, ultimately using his own body to secure this place from the abyss monsters. Please remember, every action taken by players could potentially decide the future's course. At this moment, several followers of Sequence 6 slowly lifted their hands, and a black book filled with sinister presence appeared before their eyes. The dark scripture seemed merely a summoned projection, quickly flipping through its pages under the influence of floating strength. Finally, it stopped on a page. It displayed the image of an elder. Sword Heart, Sequence 1 Strength, a subordinate of lower god Luo, suppressed the abysses. Sound demons, currently with depleted vitality, can be surrounded and killed. After giving out these prompts, the projection of the dark scripture slowly faded. And those who had summoned the dark scripture were pale, gasping heavily with great exertion, clearly having paid a high price. Su Qi was slightly startled. There was such a method. It was somewhat like the Paradise Guidance just now. The Abyss Church also had its own special guidance. And that dark scripture. Su Qi looked towards where it had vanished, even sensing information from the Abyss and the old days. However, now was not the time to ponder this. At this moment, the three venerables and their followers had already issued a call to encircle and attack the thousands following behind. Everyone, take action. Kill him. The purple-haired venerable coldly spat out these words. People hesitated for a moment, then in the next instant erupted with spiritual energy. As a massive barrage of attacks from all directions converged, countless blasts of spiritual energy targeted the elder in the center. This was the expected discipline of a top-tier pioneering team, absolute obedience to commands, bursting into combat instantly. Of course, a part of it was driven by the strength of the Abyss believers. Su Qi slowly caressed his mask, not rushing to make a move. He was thinking how to rescue this elder without exposing any flaws. The situation was actually quite clear. The Dark Zone had been revived, and within numerous world fragments, all kinds of entities and strength began to surface. Everyone was advancing together, encountering them, and at the same time, both ancient forces and characters from the Abyss and the present world were being awakened, unsealed. Of course, here, their target was clear. They intended to slay the Elder and release the suppressed Abyss monsters. The only one on the side of the Elder here was probably only Su Qi. However, Su Qi didn't need to come up with a plan, for in the next moment, boom! There was a terrifying tremor beneath the Elder's feet that reached everyone's ears. The Elder slowly raised the broken blade and cut down all the incoming attacks. His fearsome strength caused a slight change in the attacker's expressions. The Elder slightly opened his eyes. His murky, dead water-like eyes were muddled, yet they brought a sense of oppression to those who attacked him. Old man, the suited venerable, with a cigar in his mouth and an evil-killing intent on his face, spoke coldly. What's the past glory worth now that it was called a legend, a hero, by countless people? A weakened body, a suppressed and limited strength, now nothing more than a static target. He was cold, with a hint of madness. Everyone, attack, kill. Without any hesitation, they moved in unison, their power fully unleashed. The purple-haired venerable and the bald venerable calmly watched the scene and waved their hands, unleashing powerful attacks as well. The old warrior's murky eyes held a terrifying will inherent to the strong, his strength bursting forth from his defeated body. While defending, he also unleashed swift sword lights, which some were quick enough to dodge, and some were cleaved into blood mist in an instant. It must be known that all present were 7th rank, and just grazing touches of the sword light could easily kill. Such was the old warrior's current terrifying strength. Yet Su Qi, watching this scene, knew that the old warrior's situation was not optimistic. The old warrior was suppressing a monstrous enemy, with much of his strength used for this purpose. Each burst of strength caused the old warrior's body to tremble slightly. That was the backlash from suppressing the monster. A massive onslaught of attacks converged on him. The old warrior remained calm, dragging his body unwaveringly, without uttering a sound. Even as he was riddled with wounds, his sword light raged on in wide sweeping motions. He cleaved a path of bloody light. His murky eyes only saw the images of thousands of enemies. At this moment, the old warrior was like a world boss from an online game, everyone grinding down his health, his strength. Heroic, yet utterly alone. So tragic. The suited venerable muttered 2 words. A legend of the old days, a once mighty warrior, now reduced to meat on the chopping block. Thousands were besieging him. The old warrior hung on, accruing more pitiful, ragged wounds, but still he held his broken blade upright. His gaunt face as steady and hard as iron, with the air of one who marches alone toward the end. He vowed to suppress the abyss to his last breath. And then a voice came through gently. Mr. Dao, it's time to go. There's no point in stubbornly defending to the death here. The Sword Heart Elder, whose expression had been stoic, suddenly paused. He lifted his head, his murky eyes looking towards the young man standing among several murderous venerables. This young man, was he advising him? Was he not an enemy? Or was he merely pitying him? Su Buxian extended his hand calmly, quietly transmitting his voice. Have you made up your mind? It's not yet time for a fight to the death. If you fall here, he glanced gently at those around him with blood-red, excited eyes, egging on the crowd. Especially for a hero of the past, to die at the hands of this rabble, it would be rather unsatisfying, wouldn't it? Waves of explosive forces converged, bombarding the old warrior, as if to drown him. If you want to escape, just unleash your strongest strike toward me. The old warrior did not respond, but the light from his sword changed slightly. In such a dire situation, his initial thought was to use all his power to suppress, even if it meant dying here, but to limit the abyss monster's power beneath him as much as possible. That was the mission he ought to fulfill, to lend a modest help to the upheaval about to burst forth. But now, the old warrior felt dying here would be a waste and a sorrow with a sense of reluctance. He had not yet met with his old comrades with whom he had fought, nor had he vanquished the oddities that threatened countless lives. His sword should not sink into the ground along with his broken body. The once celebrated sword saint could not die in such a wretched state. The old warrior didn't know the young man's purpose, nor did he know what means he had to take him away. But, at this moment, he channeled all his remaining power into his sword, the majestic and terrifying strength resonating with unstoppable might, shaking everything. The crowd's expression changed. Retreat! Such a terrifying aura. Several venerables even trembled. This deadly sharp killing intent made them feel extreme danger. One by one, they quickly retreated. But their faces were filled with excitement, for they knew such bursts often signified the final struggle. However, as everyone swiftly retreated, only Su Qi stepped forward and charged in. You! The eyes of 3 venerables paused slightly, a touch of coldness in their gaze. To confront such an attack head-on? Madness! Yet in Su Qi's hand, a long sword gleamed coldly, his body sinking. Yet he withstood the terrifying sword light and, under the watchful eyes of all, thrust directly into the old warrior's body. When Su Qi's blade plunged into the elder's body, the elder's strength did not cease abruptly. Instead, it thunderously overturned the entire ground. Boom, boom. Huge boulders were madly shot out. An intense fluctuation rapidly spread. Countless people had no choice but to retreat a kilometer, using all their spiritual energy to resist. So strong, terrifying strength. The 3 venerables each had their methods to blockade it. But this horrifying power did not cause any harm to Su Qi. On the contrary, Su Qi's blade even slightly rotated, and a massive amount of blood gushed out. The elder looked at the knife on his chest. His pupils trembled slightly, and his body slowly fell, crumbling like smoke and clouds. Su Qi slowly withdrew his long sword. Blood splattered all over the ground. He turned his head back and calmly smiled. Retreating so quickly, scared? The three venerables looked at Su Chi with a mix of surprise and indifference. They did not expect that in the face of such terrifying power, Su Chi would face it head-on and strike it down in one hit. However, they did not ask further. Each venerable had their own tricks and special methods. Especially since venerables merged with ancient relics from the abyss, they possess extremely powerful sequence. Naturally, they could not be judged by ordinary standards. They themselves also possessed great strength. Well done. The purple-haired venerable's expression became calm. He uttered a phrase, "So now you should face the power of the abyss." Boom, boom. The entire devastated ground emitted intense vibrations. From the piles of skeletons, a thick black smoke began to emerge. With a loud bang, many skeletons flew horizontally. The ground cracked, revealing the appearance of a huge monster bound by countless chains. This is the ancient king with the strength of Sequence 1 from the abyss, the Black Bone King. Su Chi looked up at this massive figure, its body composed of various black bones, standing over 30 meters tall. An eerie aura released from it. In its pitch-black eye sockets, a strange fire flickered slowly, and at the same time, one of the dark beams directly surged towards Su Chi. The evil god totem on Su Chi's body absorbed it, flashing slightly. He, of course, knew what this was. Every believer of the Abyss Church, upon unlocking the ancient abyssal power, would be entwined by the abyss power according to their contribution and progress ratio. In plain terms, everyone has their own distribution system. Su Chi wasn't very surprised. He could see the shadow of paradise here. After all, they are both hubs, only manifested in different forms. The abyss believers, as well as the venerables, were also unlocking the abyss power in various places to enhance their evil god totems. But for the venerables, increasing their strength wasn't the most important. They rather sought to gain the true gaze of the evil god. At that moment, a hoarse, ancient voice, as if it had not spoken for a long time, echoed in Su Chi's ear. "It's not truly unsealed yet. The chains on it are the last means I left. It can buy some time." Su Chi smiled slightly. "I know. Even if the abyss power is unsealed, for these monsters to truly revive and run rampant, it still needs time." Similarly, they also had a similar process. The ancient current world power awakening recovery also required time to break free from restrictions. Simply put, it's now like two prisons. Everyone is waking up the beings inside their cages. When the battle begins, it will be seen which side is stronger, who can control the initiative, and claim the victory of the first act of the extremely evil world's descent. At that moment, the elder, looking at the evil god totem on Su Chi's arm, fell silent. "You are an evil abyss believer. Why help me?" He initially thought Su Chi was an undercover, but seeing the evil god totem on him, he started to doubt his own judgment. "Because I'm a good person." Su Chi paused. The elder just lowered his head as if he heard a huge joke. His hoarse voice said, "Abyss believers are not good people. Not just because of spiritual pollution, which resonates with the abyss, but also because of that totem. The evil god, its terrifying power, will dominate each of its believers, insulting my evil god brother again." But of course, Su Chi knew he was right. All abyss believers could gain terrifyingly powerful strength from the totem. But at the same time, they would also be dominated by the totem rooted deeply in their souls. However, for Su Chi that was a minor issue. After all, what he was doing was dominating the power of the master of the abyss. "Anyway, old man, before your strength and body fully recover, come with me?" Su Chi spoke softly. The elder did not respond. He was currently in a closed, strange space. He slowly looked down this corridor with a sacred aura. The patterns in the corridor seemed familiar, yet he couldn't recall them for a moment. Now he could only follow this young descendant. Whatever the case, what he previously said was indeed correct. Dying here had no value. Only by surviving could he carry forward the past mission. Moreover, the elder recalled in his mind, since he had awakened those divine lords in the god's palace, past arrangements should also be taking effect. The Eye of Destiny would select some special heavenly destiny people, guiding them to search for the world ship, and upon arriving here awaken ancient current world power. But the Elder might not expect when mentioning the world ship or heavenly destiny people. Among them was one right in front of him. After all, initially, at the Pigeon God's place, Su Chi was chosen as one of the heavenly destiny people and received the mission to find the world ship fragment, the world tree withered leaf. However, for Su Chi, that was not his main task. He let the other heavenly destiny people take care of it. Let's go. Continue moving forward. The suited venerable squinted his eyes, looking at the huge abyss shadow in front of him, knowing that the ancient power of the abyss still needed time to recover. They naturally won't stay here, they just need to step closer, step by step awakening the abyss power along the way. When the time is right, everything that needs to burst forth will do so. Let's go. Su Chi followed cheerfully. He had mentioned before, since upgrading to the 7th rank, he had a lot of new things and had undergone some changes, such as sequence characteristics which also climbed towards a higher rank, becoming even more powerful. Just now, the Holy Light Corridor was like this, it could last a longer time, even trapping people inside, and through this they managed to rescue the old man. The body of the old man, and even the bloodstains, were the concrete ability of the spiritual eyes, now easily and lifelike being conjured up quickly. That way he fooled countless people present. Of course, if they had inspected it closely, they would quickly realize the trick. After all, it was just an empty shell. They continued on towards the next world, and Su Chi followed. He was not in a hurry now, being an undercover operative with the dual identity of the Venerable Plan and the Heavenly Destiny People Plan. He was still the great sect hierarch of the Hustlers sect. The last thing he could do was rush. It was better to take it slow. This time, not only did Su Chi have to stand firm, but he also had to secure a stand for the Hustlers sect. Kill! This was a world of Western fantasy, where everyone was engaged in intense battle. And in the distance was a large, blood-colored monster cage. In the middle was a man nailed to a huge cross. The man in a white attire, though stained with blood, exuded serenity. A divine sun stood on higher ground. Kill! His divinity shone with holy light. His eyes were resolute. Tear out those nails. Kill those monsters. Free the man on the cross. Yes, divine sun. He was one of the heavenly destiny people, who formed an alliance with the pioneering team soon after entering the extremely evil world. They had come to awaken the ancient power of the present world's justice by seeking the world ship fragment. And those chosen by the Eye of Destiny generally belonged to powerful tribes, bloodlines, possessing gifted potentials. In several other worlds, the surrounding monsters roared and erupted, swarming crazily. Other heavenly destiny people were also valiantly fighting, following guidance to rescue, some facing immense difficulties, some even encountering forces of the Abyss camp. The skirmish was quietly erupting. And as for Old Huang's group, although following the direction of the everyday commerce among other forces, due to the uncertain effect of ripples, it was easy to walk the same passage, yet end up in different worlds. Of course, the closer to the core they moved, the fewer the worlds and the greater the danger and intensity increased, the more likely encounters became. Like continuously forking branches, from outer to inner, eventually leading to the same trunk. At this moment, they were in a world filled with blood corpses. Numerous blood corpses were howling and roaming in the city. And these blood corpses, each possessing the strength of 7th rank, among them even stronger existences, armed with weapons on their back, heads wrapped in blood cloth bags with steel nails embedded, were of the 6th rank. They were surrounding and attacking a team of hundreds. Priest, should we go help? Don't rush. Old Huang squinted. He was now of the 6th rank, having suppressed his power to 7th rank in order to enter here. He was also paying attention to other encountered teams. After all, if not necessary, it would still try to avoid all beings related to the Abyss. And in front of it was a normal pioneering team. However, one person among them, Old Huang noticed someone holding a dead leaf, growling as they used its power, erupting into battle with the surrounding blood corpses, This person was obviously different from the others, possessing a leader's charisma and the greatest strength among them. Isn't this a world tree withered leaf? Old Huang was a well-versed and experienced individual. His previous identity nothing trivial, having served as a priest under several gods. He scrutinized his memories, and a flash of insight struck. Heavenly destiny people, Old Huang muttered to himself. Being a former member of the God's Palace, it naturally knew of the world ship plan, and now, recalling the world tree withered leaf, everything clicked into place. Just as I suspected, not only are the believers of the Abyss preparing, but those in the present world are also trying their best to awaken and prepare. However, it seemed that the preparations on the side of the present world were still lacking considerably. Although this heavenly destiny person had not followed a pioneering team but had gathered hundreds on his own. Yet, upon entering this world, he had grossly underestimated the dangers and made strategic errors. Now, as the city swarmed with blood corpses, they were in constant retreat. Old Huang watched this scene calmly, knowing it was time to act. Although according to its previous behavior, it wouldn't have bothered with such matters. But now, as a priest of the Hustlers sect, it naturally had to do something beneficial for the sect. Besides, it didn't want to see the Abyss power overwhelmingly strengthening and leading to the dire era of utter ruin. Achi, Mujun, 0. Each of you take 3 people and go. All right. Achi was the previous short-haired girl. Mujun carried a large sword, and 0 wore a white hat, holding a sniper rifle. They looked back at their companions. Brothers and sisters who will come? Not interested. I'll save my strength for stronger enemies. It's all yours. Old Huang watched this group, chattering away, feeling somewhat speechless. These youngsters were indeed putting on an act. But it understood. It was normal, these blood corpses genuinely didn't interest them. Each of them had been chosen by the Eye of Destiny as the audience, and under its mentoring, had developed their gained powers to the utmost. Each was far superior to ordinary peers of their level. Come on, hurry up, or they'll be gone, Old Huang grumbled. They chuckled reluctantly, with several stepping forward to follow the 3. All right, let's go. The 9 of them burst forth, blazing a path through the mass of blood corpses with irresistible force. The besieged people below were stunned by this scene. The blood-soaked heavenly destiny person gaped at such a sight, not knowing who these individuals were. But they were formidable. Don't just stand there, friend. Break through in one go. The heavenly destiny person looked at these contemporaries, each exuding an array of powerful presences. Slightly dazed, he couldn't help but mutter, "Who are you?" "Us." They smiled faintly. "We're members from the Hustlers sect." 20 minutes later, with their help, the heavenly destiny person led hundreds to successfully break out to a research facility, liberating a middle-aged man inundated with tubes slowly infusing energy. "Priest, we have completed our mission. Well done. You are one step closer to the sect hierarch now." Old Huang was very pleased with their performance, and while satisfied, did not forget to tease them a bit, drawing out the vast influence of the sect hierarch. After all, Su Buxian's outburst by the Rainbow Bridge had left a deep impression on them and had also inspired admiration. Of course, it had its considerations. That was to train them to be incredibly strong so that, in due time, if Su Buxian turns out to be less capable than them, he would see what that guy would do. Better not be idling in some pioneering team, struggling to move forward. Old Huang was already looking forward to seeing that brat again. After all, it had now recovered some of its strength and had brought out so many astonishing rising stars. After such a long time, upon a reunion, it would surely take the upper hand, astonishing that guy to the core. However, Old Huang had guessed partly correctly. Su Qi was indeed slacking off in a pioneering team, except this team. It was the Abyss group, the one he least wanted to contact and had tried every means to avoid. Search for valuable items. Then continue to the next world. Old Huang didn't hesitate and led his team forward. He didn't need to have any contact with the heavenly destiny people at this moment, as his pace was neither fast nor slow, since he needed to train his people, and there was no need to rush to the front. Meanwhile, He didn't mind spreading the name of the Hustlers sect first. After all, Old Huang's eyes carried a bit of depth. After the sequence path is connected and countless ancient powers are revived, fame and belief are more important than one might think. Su Buxian, let's see if you can catch this toss. The abundance of world fragments on the periphery of the Dark Zone was being advanced by one team after another. The strength of the fragments on the outer edge wasn't as high as everyone expected. Only a small number flipped over or were completely wiped out, and although there were various casualties, this didn't affect the whole. Meanwhile, the people from the Meteor Alliance weren't taking action with the pioneering teams. They numbered roughly 110 or so. At this moment, they were in a weird world, where the mountains were full of sharp blades, and all the trees were covered with spikes and thorny iron blades. Be careful. It looks like others have been here before. A white-haired youth from the Meteor Alliance spoke slowly as he looked at the flesh on the mountain slope. Brother Yu, what do you think? Yu's eyes were deep, and his facial lines looked etched into his skin. Though he was only in his 20s, he appeared quite mature. He was also dressed in a long robe decorated with patterns of fire-like clouds. But this wasn't the key point. What was important were his eyes, which featured crescent moon patterns that were slowly rotating with his gaze. Yu, looking into the distance. There were at least 50 people who died here. He touched the bloodstains on the ground, his voice calm. The rest must have known that they couldn't venture further into this place and chose to abandon this world. The members of the Meteor Alliance were all geniuses, and Yu was their current leader, possessing the strongest capabilities and fearsome judgment. Most importantly, Yu's past reputation, he was a fallen genius. Before his downfall, Yu had dominated countless rankings alone, and among the many geniuses present in his time, he was second to none. However, they all knew deeply that they were still far behind the man in front of them, Yu. This was also why many geniuses of the Meteor Alliance were willing to let this man lead them. The white-haired youth was named Lin Frost. He looked towards the top of Sword Mountain, where something was shimmering, and said softly, "What should we do? Try it, or retreat?" As part of Paradise, they naturally knew how to act. After all, the powers they had unlocked and liberated could contribute to the progress they made in this event. Additionally, unlocking present world powers would bring a sacred white light, drawing towards them. Previously in the Anxious Land, players had revealed that this kind of protective sacred power seemed related. Following a pioneering team was initially a good choice, but various restrictions, demands, and even exploitation from pioneering teams ultimately led them, 100 or so individuals, to decide on their own path. This was the pride of geniuses who refused to stand beneath others, and of course part of it was because the overall strength of most pioneering teams was below theirs. We can give it a try. The group stirred slightly. Let's go. Even if they had once fallen and descended from high positions, their resurgence still carried extraordinary potential and strength. The 100 or so people moved in unison, and in less than a minute, they had already surpassed the bloody flesh zone halfway up the mountain. This was the source of their confidence. Each of them possessed the strength to take on 10 enemies, even without being part of any force. They could still support each other and climb upward, and various sharp weapons in Sword Mountain began to roar and burst forth, launching attacks. As they moved closer to the summit, the cold gleams grew more intense. They could smell the stench of dissolving flesh at the tip of their noses. This place is... Yu's eyes narrowed. All the gathered corpses and flesh. At the top of the mountain were piles of flesh and blood, with a large pool formed from the copious blood. In the middle of the pool was a spiked blood hammer, emitting a strange and terrifying aura. Dark abyss power was sleeping on it. Their expressions darkened slightly. This is a weapon of the abyss in slumber. Anything related to the abyss is a horrifying taboo in the present world and likewise a dangerous sign in paradise. The white-haired youth, Lin Frost, said gravely, "We should not linger here for long. Since it's connected to the abyss, it's likely that abyss believers and various other powers related to it might be approaching this world." Yu, however, slowly pointed towards the giant blood hammer. his eyes crescent moons closing fast in a spiral. That is not a weapon for sacrifice, but for sealing. Underneath this sword mountain, an enemy of the abyss is sealed. Lin Frost's eyes moved slightly. An enemy of the abyss was naturally one of the ancient powers of the present world. Such a massive sword mountain was merely a seal. It suggested that this ancient power from the present world must be quite significant. We might as well try. In the extremely evil world, they naturally stood on the side of order, and as a result, to reduce pollution value, they had to awaken and unseal the ancient powers of the present world as much as possible. Of course, everything they did would also become part of the progress accumulated in this event. However, as they were about to act, everyone felt a chilling air, a bizarre aura descending upon them. Yu was the first to react, suddenly raising his head, only to find, somehow, a man in a white coat was standing in the sky, his face slightly pale, completely bloodless, but he was not weak, because the terrifying aura emanating from his entire being had already made everyone's hearts shudder, feeling a chill. This person was Sequence 6. Although his power was suppressed in 7th rank, he had already touched the extraordinary threshold, a different level of life that unconsciously emanated. Everyone remained extremely cautious and alert, weapons in hand, honestly not panicking. After all, he was only one person, even if outside he was Sequence 6, but here, suppressed by rules, even if strong, there were limits. His eyes were full of eeriness. "Don't be afraid." This man in the white coat, his lips curling into a sinister smile, said, "I'm not interested in you. A group from Paradise, Descenders. Flesh and blood that cannot stay, has no value." His surgical tool slowly glided across, causing a huge wave to separate in the blood pond, filling it with even more flesh. He somewhat morbidly let out a few hoarse laughs. "The items here all have consciousness, souls, exactly what my current research is lacking." Everyone tensed up, because this man in the white coat suddenly flew down toward them. "Be careful. This man is extremely dangerous." You took a deep breath. "Attack." They all burst forth with spiritual energy. A barrage of traits surged forth, but the man in the white coat just weirdly smiled. "I, you see, am a creator of life." His surgical tool fiercely chopped towards space, and the next moment, a tearing rift actually appeared. Roar! Roar! He. Inside, a plethora of bizarre, grotesque flesh monsters surged out. Each one was an existence pieced together. The faces of the group changed. A massive amount of skills, tools burst forth. The power of paradise. The man in the white coat calmly watched them, his mind seemingly recalling a previous figure. "You are quite far from that guy. However, that's not important, I will find him. And you, just take your fragile souls and roll back." His surgical tool flicked with cold light, deep black auras violently erupting. And just at that moment, the man in the white coat slightly raised his brow, looking towards the distance. Under the fluctuations of the space ripples, a large number of people were surging through, actually another pioneering team entering here. The totem on the man in the white coat was slightly heating up, indicating people possessing the world tree withered leaf were approaching. The no-life venerable. A hoarse voice rose within his totem. "Retreat, now is not the time to confront the heavenly destiny people head-on. Their world tree withered leaf has not yet reached the withering time, as the undying priest has said before." The no-life venerable's eyes held a trace of indifference, but upon hearing the 4 words, "undying priest," he fell silent for a few seconds. He hoarsely laughed. "Of course, I obviously know. The heavenly destiny people and the venerables alike, among them, there were not a few whose strength reached Sequence 6. Although he was not afraid, it truly wasn't the time yet." No-life venerable looked at the crowd. "You guys!" He slowly withdrew the scalpel. His eerie smile widened as he said, "Before we get closer to the final land, we can live a little longer." No-life venerable moved slowly and disappeared within the ripples created by the scalpel, with many monsters seemingly scrambling to follow him. Then they vanished without a trace. The members of the Meteor Alliance looked at each other, clueless as to why the opponent had suddenly left, especially since they couldn't hear what was being said within the Abyss Totem. And you, at this moment, a trace of blood lingered in his eyes, his face pale and breaths labored. He had just used his unique traits to forcibly capture the totem's scent. However, he saw a terrifying illusion that nearly shattered his mind. "What's wrong?" The white-haired young man quickly supported the somewhat staggering Yu. Yu lifted his head and said hoarsely, "He is an entity from the abyss. And he has marked us." Everyone's expression darkened. Also, Yu slowly looked into the distance. There are others who have appeared in this world. At that moment, an overwhelming number of presences emerged. One figure after another descended here, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, more and more people stepping through the ripples to appear in this world. Dressed in various mechanical equipment with wristwatches on their hands, they presented a formidable appearance. "This is the Everyday Commerce." Someone recognized them. After all, the unique equipment from Everyday Commerce was hard to forget. The Big Forces pioneering team. So many people. Meanwhile, there were also top executives from Everyday Commerce, all equipped with powerful prosthetics and high-energy reactors. Finally, two figures slowly stepped out, Simon and Nancy. Nancy's appearance even caused some below to scream uncontrollably. Simon touched his nose and remarked, "Mr. Nancy, this is already the 6th world, and your fans are still so passionate." Nancy did not answer but instead gazed into the distance, murmuring to himself, "Has he left?" Just after the previous world ended, he had immediately asked Simon to lead the Everyday Pioneer group across the ripples to arrive here. Not for any other reason, but because Nancy was now quietly holding a World Tree withered leaf in his palm. His identity as a Heavenly Destiny person was something he encountered by chance half a year ago. After stepping into this extremely evil world, he shouldered a heavy duty and danger. Just now the leaf grew warm, guiding him. But as soon as he got close, that unsettling danger had left on its own. "The mission of a Heavenly Destiny person involves the present world. I can't involve the Everyday Commerce," Nancy whispered. "Mr. Nancy, what did you just say?" Simon was a bit startled. "Nothing." Nancy shook his head, slowly putting away the World Tree withered leaf. "There are about 100 people down there. First send someone to contact them. See if they want to join the freelance workers of the Everyday Pioneer Group." Simon nodded. "I'll arrange that." In simple terms, freelance workers follow along but aren't protected nor provided any equipment. If they join, they follow. If not, it doesn't matter to them, and if they perform well later, they could be offered sanctuary and equipment. "I wonder," Nancy sighed softly, "if that guy has entered here. Are you talking about the chairman?" "Stop calling him chairman. That guy never managed anything." While Nancy was critical, he couldn't help but sigh gently. But if he were here, would it change anything? Holding the Destiny leaf, he was keenly aware of how dangerous the situation was, with the power of the abyss nearly bursting forth explosively. After entering here, he had continuously probed for messages or traces, but so far, nothing had been found. "Mr. Simon, Mr. Nancy." The sound of a communicator started ringing. It was from those sent to contact the 100 people. This is their spiritual energy probe data. However, they don't wish to join. Simon felt it was a pity. Looking at the probe data just sent over on the communicator, these 100 or so people seem to be the elite of the elite, with spiritual energy data not much different from those young masters. "Then let's leave it at that." "Okay. Wait, Mr. Simon." The communicator suddenly paused. "It seems there might be a development. 3 members of our pioneering team recognized them. They are currently conversing." To tell the truth, Nancy and Jiang Ji hadn't expected to come across acquaintances here. "Boss Yu, Brother Frost Dong, and everyone." Jiang Ji was a bit excited. "What is fate? This is fate." He and Nancy, along with Long Sun and Shandian, The four of them were weak but, at last, had encountered familiar comrades. You guys... You looked at Nancy and Jiang Ji, also somewhat surprised. After speaking briefly with the staff from the Everyday Commerce, Jiang Ji started to enthusiastically interact with his companions. Meanwhile, on the other side, the artificial body warriors from the Everyday Commerce weren't intervening. One was just reporting to Vice President Simon. If these few members could convince these people to join the pioneering team, that would naturally be recorded by their bracelets and they would be rewarded. After all, these 100 or so people were totally different from ordinary sequencers. However, in reality, things went smoother than imagined. Mr. Simon, the situation has changed. They have been convinced and decided to join, temporarily as unofficial members. Simon paused. I am aware. After a brief contemplation, give them the freedom of unofficial members, but also distribute equipment and spirit coins to them. On this matter, he felt there was no need to be stingy. Having more strength on his side would make it easier to advance to the core regions. The artificial body warrior nodded. Understood. An hour later, under the direction of Nancy and Simon, the many artificial body warriors divided everyone in the pioneering team into several squads. By sheer force of numbers, they successfully claimed the Sword Mountain. Of course, the key was Nancy, who used the power of the World Tree Withered Leaf. He successfully pulled out the blood hammer seeped with evil spirits, underneath which was engraved a damaged holy light statue. The power inside was slowly recovering. This world is one of the world ship fragments. Nancy looked as a trace of holy light fell upon him. He gently touched the World Tree Withered Leaf in his hand, which guided him to continue forward. However, Nancy could see, with each step closer to the core region, the power within the World Tree Withered Leaf, its essence, would wither a little more. Take away all the energy barite and various valuable natural treasures that have formed here. After resting up, we will move on. Because in these kinds of world fragments, where powers were antagonistic, countless years would often breed many substances imbued with energy. Even some containing divinity traits of totem becoming utilizable tools. Just like, after Sword Mountain crumbled, there were a lot of blood-stained stones, broken blades, and soaked bones. Each could wield different abilities, though of course, some came with a price. In any case, everything in the Dark Zone tends to hold good value, which is why most people rush headlong into the Dark Zone. These were tangible gains that one could see and touch. Not to mention those extraordinary items. During the rest period, Nancy, Jiang Ji, and the members of the Meteor Alliance stayed together. So, you have been acting alone all this time, not joining any pioneering teams. Jiang Ji listened to Frostong's narrative. Stubborn, each of you. However, he could understand, having once been one of them. Frostong shrugged. No choice. In this extremely evil world full of a mixed bag, everything is dominated by self-interest. We don't want to be used by others as pawns, yet indeed it's hard to establish a foothold here. Their advancement speed just couldn't compete with others, and any time they encountered other forces, they were utterly unable to resist. So, he paused, then looked at Jiang Ji. When you sent us the invitation from the Hustlers sect, we indeed hesitated because it really aligns with our thoughts. Moreover, he thumped Jiang Ji in the chest with a fist, chuckling. After all, we all trust you. Jiang Ji coughed. I didn't expect you would still care, but, without skipping a beat, thanks for trusting me. I won't let you down. Sigh. Scam one if you can, after all, he was in the same pit. Old leading the new, great leading the small. Aim to achieve performance first. The main reason actually is... You suddenly spoke calmly, his eyes deep as they turned toward Nancy. It's because you are here. Long time no see, Nancy. Nancy also looked at him. Long time no see. He wasn't a member of the Meteor Alliance, nor was he in the same batch of newcomers as you. But they had once competed and fought, both being among the famous powerhouses back then. However, now everyone has fallen from grace. Jiang Ji's eyes widened. So actually it's not because of me, but because Nancy is here, that's what you considered? Frost Dong rubbed his head. Ahem. That's not important. Jiang Ji. That hurt. He had even considered whether to tip everyone off before. Now he must pull everyone in. Frost Dong swiftly moved past the topic. Anyway, although no definite answer has been given, we are indeed considering joining. But really, we didn't expect. He looked toward the everyday commerce, the hustlers sect, to be so colossal, even gathering some of the top pioneering teams. Silence. A lengthy silence. Nancy and Jiang Ji exchanged a silent look. Jiang Ji coughed. Brother Bai, please speak. Nancy exhaled helplessly, having long accepted the reality with equanimity, but sometimes, it's still a bit hard to stomach. As if others see you coming from a top 500 enterprise, assuming you're a high-paid white-collar worker. But in reality, you were just here delivering food, and the money from deliveries still had to subsidize your actual workplace. He softly said, This is the Everyday Commerce, a constant star-level special force related to the Spirit King's background. Simply put, though it doesn't control many worlds, it became a top-tier power with its background and highly competitive technologies. And we, the Hustlers sect, Bai Yilan softly said, although we are few in number, all are the most talented elites, even though we are just emerging. But we possess limitless potential. Jiang Ji's eyelids twitched. He could feel that Bai Yilan was trying his best. A person not adept at speaking or lying, Bai Yilan had already tried his best to fill in and construct positive statements. You remained silent. He wasn't a fool, even without using his pupil traits. He could see that Bai Yilan was already struggling. So why did you join this hustler's sect? Someone like you, who wouldn't settle for being under others? Bai Yilan paused. If there really is a reason, it would only be one. Everything is because of our sect hierarchy. You paused. This time you could see the change in Bai Yilan's emotions, which seemed very solemn. This also made you curious about the so-called sect hierarchy. So he is the sect hierarchy, huh? He seems like a very reliable man. Frost couldn't help but look towards Long Sun standing not far away. He could sense that this man had formidable strength. Jiang Ji shook his head. No, that guy isn't here. And that term you just mentioned has nothing to do with him. You suddenly spoke in a low and calm voice. So this Everyday Commerce is your chosen pioneering team, right? Yes. Bai Yilan lightly nodded. For now, it differs quite a bit from other pioneering teams. Simply put, it didn't treat countless people as disposable, and the distribution was fair without exploitation. It also made people within the pioneering team fight hard, with very few slacking off. This seems to be the result of decisions made by the higher-ups at Everyday Commerce. But you frowned slightly, your eyes cautious. Something's not quite right. Ever since a while ago, that artificial body warrior's emotions have been amiss. And he keeps his gaze fixed on us. Have you noticed the machine by his ear blinking? He's quietly recording our conversation and reporting to someone higher up. Bai Yilan frowned slightly, looking back. Indeed, as you said, there were traces of that. However, don't worry. From the moment he started doing this, I've already disrupted him with my spiritual energy. You handled things meticulously, calmly speaking. This Everyday Commerce seems not so simple. And for some reason unknown to us, it seems we have been targeted. Jiang Ji and Bai Yilan instinctively looked towards Shandian, who was now resting on Long Sun's shoulder at this moment. If there was any chance of them being targeted, it could be Shandian might have been discovered. After all, mechanical life is entirely different from artificial bodies. If they were targeted, whether it would be friendly or driven by greed, Bai Yilan and Jiang Ji were unsure. This was also the reason they had always avoided contact. At this moment, if it were revealed, they would have to find a way out. After all, the secrets on Shandian and those technologies were extremely advanced, not to mention the connections to Bai Qixing and the background behind him. Meanwhile, Nancy and Simon, Swordstar, and some superpower captains were at a temporary base. They were originally discussing the next steps. At this moment, Simon suddenly received communication from outside. He abruptly stood up, somewhat shocked. Are you sure? Are you sure they just mentioned the hustlers? Nancy's pupils shifted slightly. About half a minute later, Simon inhaled deeply, hanging up the communicator. They seemed to have mentioned the hustlers sect, but before they could record it, it was detected and blocked. Nancy was also somewhat stirred. Damn. She hadn't expected to suddenly find a clue now. Sword Star remained calm beside them. Both of you cool down. Firstly, just mentioning these 3 words doesn't prove they are members, and we cannot rule out hearsay, enemy suspicion, etc. You need to be prepared to identify. He knew Su Buxian and the hustlers sect, though he wasn't optimistic about them. After all, in the present world, without a background, without connections, without strength, creating an organization from scratch, the likelihood is that one remains obscure forever, and breaking out requires countless years of accumulation and settlement. Of course, more likely is that just as one starts gaining some fame, they are easily wiped out by other powerful forces. I know. Nancy's eyes gradually calmed. He was now 7th rank, the highest position just under the extraordinary, a major figure wherever he went. Different from that past host who only wanted to cling to others for survival, he had become more stable and thoughtful. Anyway, let's talk to them first. This is our only clue for now, Nancy softly said. 5 minutes later, Bai Yilan and Jiang Ji, including Long Sun and the Shandian on his shoulder, seemed slightly tense at the moment. They looked at the superpower cyborg captain leading them. We're indeed being watched, Jiang Ji quietly communicated through spiritual energy. Shandian grumbled, I didn't expose us though. It was disguised well, and it hadn't sensed anyone probing. But everyone was on high alert, so there must be. Long Sun also paused, looking at the superpower cyborg captain in front. Be careful, this artificial body warrior has reached a very powerful stage of spiritual energy, not to mention the prosthetic weapons he handles with ease. Bai Yilan gently said, You has already prepared. If the other side shows signs of hostility, they will act. This is the power of companions. Although the everyday commerce is a large force, harboring high-sequence big shots and backed by the Spirit King, they will neither bow nor admit defeat. And when they stepped into the stronghold created with their spatial power, Bai Yilan, they paused slightly. Because there weren't many people inside, no superpower cyborg warriors were present. Only 2 people. One was Simon, who held a high position, the current leader of everyday commerce, with profound eyes. The other was the super celebrity Nancy, fervently worshipped by countless people. Nancy smiled lightly. You've finally arrived. Please take a seat. He snapped his fingers lightly. Seats rose from the ground where they stood. Respected leaders, Jiang Ji and the others didn't sit down. We'd rather stand. May we ask what this is about? They naturally remained alert. Nancy suddenly chuckled. Bai Yilan's body trembled slightly. He had just been in touch with you using a tool, and the investigation skill left on him was effortlessly erased. Bai Yilan looked at Nancy warily. This is what being 7th rank means. Even with abilities sealed to 7th rank, he could easily suppress their power. Nancy smiled slightly. Don't be nervous. We have no ill intentions. We've called you here just to ask a few individual questions. Sit down, have some tea. Nancy snapped his fingers, and some cups of hot tea appeared on the seats that had risen. At this moment, Long Sun and the others noticed that this so-called stronghold was actually a space, created by the fearsome 7th rank powerful figure before them. The opposition is terrifyingly strong, Shandian rasped. But don't worry, if worst comes to worst, use me for an opportunity. I have ways to save myself. Bai Yilan didn't respond, but calmly said, So, what would you like to ask, respected leaders? He wasn't the type to abandon his companions, the same as before their downfall, and when facing the man with glasses. At this moment, Bai Yilan still had his spunk. He was ready to blow up if necessary. However, things didn't develop as they had imagined. Simon just brewed a cup of tea, gently sipping it. I'd like to ask, He paused. You just mentioned the Hustlers sect, right? I want to ask. You just mentioned the Hustlers sect, right? After Simon said this, Bai Yilan, Lin Jiangji, and their two companions, if their thoughts could be visualized, would probably have had a question mark bubble pop up above their heads. They fell silent, momentarily befuddled. Shandian. So it's none of my business? It shrunk its neck a little. The Hustlers sect, it knew it was the sect founded by Su Buxian, but what caught its attention was that Lord Bai Qixing and several generals like Li Batian had private chats. It eavesdropped when it was idle. In those conversations, they had mentioned both the Hustlers and the Divine Machinery Kingdom, with emotions seeming heavy, hesitation present, and in the end, Lord Bai Qixing also seemed unable to make up his mind, deciding instead to probe the Divine Machinery Kingdom first. At this moment, Lin Jiangji couldn't help but speak up. You just said, it's about the Hustlers, right? Yes. Simon revealed a slight smile. We are very interested in it, so we called you here to ask about. He didn't spell it out, after all, he didn't know what these people's relationship was with the Hustlers sect. At this particular moment, Bai Yilan was also observing and judging, his mind racing. This was drifting from what they had anticipated. Unexpectedly, the other party mentioned the Hustlers sect, which directly disrupted their previous arrangements. Even somewhat stupefied, as Lin Jiangji was about to respond. Before answering, I would like to ask. Bai Yilan spoke slowly but did not rashly reply. Why are the two esteemed individuals interested in the Hustlers sect? Lin Jiangji. I'm more curious about why these two esteemed individuals would know about the Hustlers. Nancy observed the expressions of the four individuals, noticing. They all showed various degrees of shock and bewilderment. At the same time, there was also a certain wariness. Lost in thought, Nancy realized that this space was his sequence characteristics ability, and naturally, he couldn't be fooled by their emotional fluctuations. He lightly patted Simon on the shoulder, seemingly conveying a message, then smiled and said, It's like this. The sect leader of that sect and I have had the fortune to meet twice, so I wanted to ask when I heard you mention him. The encounters were indeed true. The first time he was humiliated after being ousted as the host. The second time he was dragged into murky waters. His planned retirement performance turned into a servitude bound to this ship. Besides, there's no need for you to be guarded or hostile. Nancy lightly pointed, and a holographic image slowly appeared with a scene. The scene was the recording from Playhaven at that time. Look, this is the footage of the sect leader and me from my show. Of course, Nancy didn't release the audio because, upon hearing it, one would realize he hardly spoke a word. It was all Su Qi hosting. A black mark on his history. But that didn't matter. Nancy already knew the identities of these people. If that's the case, Lin Jiangji coughed once. Then it truly is fate, and I won't hide it from you. We are indeed the companions of that sect leader you mentioned, also members of the Hustlers sect. Never thought the sect leader would have such a connection with you. We are really fortunate. Also, I'm a fan. When you arrived at the extreme evil city, we all went to support you. Lin Jiangji was much smoother than Bai Yilan, instantly connecting relations, networking, trying to latch onto a big leg. Simon's eyes twitched slightly. How to put it? It seemed they indeed were members of the Hustlers sect, and like President Su, their behaviors and speech were somewhat similar, probably influenced unknowingly. Of course, they only learned the superficial aspect, for when President Su hoodwinked people, he was utterly watertight. This fellow was clearly self-interested but lacked some flattery, which was normal, as ordinary people networking. To be neither humble nor haughty was already quite impressive. And President Su, he made connections quite aggressively, often dragging people into his schemes without them realizing, without any say, they were compelled to join his cause. Like himself. And Simon looked quietly at Nancy. Nancy had not yet revealed his true association with Su Buxian. He simply asked, Then, may I know, where is Su Buxian, sect leader Su, at the moment? To tell the truth, after confirming their identity, Nancy felt a strong internal pressure somewhat alleviate. The guy indeed also entered this dark zone. At least there was someone to share the burden. After all, he was well aware of Su Buxian's abilities, always able to turn the rotten into the miraculous. The sect leader is Lin Jiangji coughed. He should also be in another world fragment, I guess. Should be, right? Long Sun had Shandian resting on his shoulder. He paused. Actually, we lost each other due to certain issues before, and currently, there's still no news. Nancy and Simon fell silent. But to tell the truth, standing off to the side, Jian Xing spoke softly. He was a protector that followed young Master Spirit King and Xinghe, naturally having met Su Qi, and he was rather grateful to Su Qi for disrupting the rhythm, potentially saving the young master. I remember it's been quite a while since we parted ways. He looked at the people, and the Hustlers sect now seems to be developing pretty well. All three of you are very formidable, and so are the 100 or so people outside, all top-notched members. Much can happen in 3 days. One should look with fresh eyes. Nancy paused slightly, too, agreeing. Su Buxian had managed to recruit so many, each one could be called a supernova. A member with potential, certainly no idleness was involved, and the effort shown in the development of everyday commerce was commendable as well. Little did they know. Bai Yilan and Jiang Ji both twitched their brows slightly, and if not for their thick skin, they would have blushed. Nancy seemed to have noticed this too. What's wrong? Well, you misunderstood. Jiang Ji touched his head. Actually, among us here, only my brother and I are members. Brother Long is a companion I met in Extreme Evil City, and the others are friends I knew from the past. Nancy was a bit stunned, full of question marks, and she couldn't help but open her mouth and murmur, "So the Hustlers sect, Jiang Ji held up a few fingers. Nancy Venerable, speaking of the total number, we have only single digits. Nancy's eyes widened. Damn you, Su Buxian. Give me my money back. In the core of darkness, where a star ring's rotation marks a day, nearly 3 days had passed. Everyone was pushing forward toward the inside. Some worlds could be passed through quickly, but the closer they got to the core, the more time and strength it required to advance higher up the ranks. At this moment, on a drifting island at sea, littered with corpses immersed in pools of blood, and within those pools of blood, there was only one person, pale-faced, covered in injuries, gasping deeply while intently staring at the being before him, and the many followers behind this being. You damned demon! You group of executioners from the abyss! If you have the guts, just kill me. Venerable Iju, do you need my help in killing him? A follower beside him asked respectfully, looking toward Su Qi standing in front of him. No need. I'll do it myself. Su Qi smiled faintly. He stepped in front of this man. Firstly, Su Qi looked at the blood-covered fellow kneeling on the ground. Before I arrived, your companions had already been killed. It seems that it was the doing of an abyss team led by other venerables, but that has nothing to do with me. Secondly, Su Qi paused. To protect your so-called heavenly destiny people, so many have died. Was it really worth it? He had actually arrived in this world less than an hour ago, and this world had already been visited by other venerables abyss teams. From the information collected in that hour, it was evident. There had been a fierce battle between the team of venerables and the team of heavenly destiny people. Yes, it had only been 3-star ring days. The encounters between the heavenly destiny people and the venerables had already begun. One reason was because the strength of the world tree withered leaf weakened. The second was the closer they got to the core, the fewer world fragments there were, increasing the chances of encounters. At the same time, this was also the initial clash between the forces of the abyss and the current world powers. The man stared fixatedly at Su Qi. Our heavenly destiny people have already safely left. You might as well give up, and as for me, kill or torture me as you please. Su Qi paused. Is that so? He whistled softly, and a red-tipped flying shuttle began to whirl rapidly around him. I guess it might be better to just kill you then. The flying shuttle effortlessly pierced through the man's heart. His body trembled under the gaze of many followers, collapsing limply, his spiritual energy seemingly sucked away. The followers were accustomed to this spectacle. The venerable they followed seemed to have a peculiar taste for such things. They had passed through more than 20 world fragments. In almost every world, the venerable before them would personally take action. However, it was normal. Every venerable had their own unique quirks. Venerable Iju, sir, the other two venerables are still searching. Shall we wait for them? Sure, Su Chi replied with a smile. There were many large isolated islands in this world, with the purple-haired venerable, bald venerable, and suited venerable each leading a team in search of ruins. After all, the closer to the core, the more crucial it was not to miss anything. And Su Chi looked at his holy light corridor, muttering to himself. I was originally planning to keep using the holy light corridor as my divine power space. But now, it has indeed become a sanctuary, I thought. The holy light corridor was related to my own sequence and spiritual energy. After upgrading to the 7th rank, a room appeared in the holy light corridor. Within the room space, I could trap others. And as my spiritual energy surged, the room itself grew larger, able to accommodate even more people. Over 20 worlds. Here were the Sword Heart Elder, the Headless Knight, the Shield Brave who excelled in defense, an old man named Gon who used magic, and so on. All of these were awakened ancient beings. Because of the encirclement by abyssal forces, each time Su Chi could only take them one by one into the space as much as possible. Besides, there were also the Heavenly Destiny people. There were a few unlucky ones placed in the corridor, and they hadn't come into contact with these ancient beings. The guy who just entered is probably shocked to see the Heavenly Destiny people he sought to protect recovering their vitality right in the corridor. However, none of that mattered. Because of these actions, Su Chi paused. The number of times that purple-haired venerable's gaze lingers on me has clearly increased. It seems I've drawn attention. Furthermore, out of sight of the followers, Su Chi slowly caressed the world tree withered leaf. He could also feel the strength on the world tree withered leaf diminishing, as if it was reaching its end and about to wither away. This made Su Chi accelerate the pace to bolster his own strength, utilizing the Abyss followers and the Abyss power to gather a vast amount of resources, increasing the limit of his spiritual energy. It indeed seems close to the core, and various forces have begun rubbing, struggling, and killing each other. The closer to the final area, the more intense the real contradictions. The presence of the Heavenly Destiny people and the Venerables is of great significance, and intense confrontation has already begun among them. Su Chi quickly rendezvoused with the other 3 Venerables after completing their search. Although Su Chi had surreptitiously taken away many of the present world's ancient strengths, packing them up and leaving. In reality, Su Chi also witnessed the release of a massive amount of Abyss power. The Skinless Giant, a flesh mountain covered with eyes, a super bizarre puppet bristling with hearts all over. The twin grotesque infants, just the terrifying and odd creatures Su Chi saw numbered no less than 30. These evil abyssal beings, each originally possessed extraordinary powers, flitting between sequences 1 to 5, and they were all slowly reviving. Not to mention in countless other worlds, how many other abyssal twisted existences were reviving. As they have said, this is indeed a momentous upheaval concerning the future. Everything that is before me is like a force lying in wait, ready to burst at any moment. The fuse for the explosion now. Su Chi looked toward the deepest darkness of ripples, the nihility. It's at the core of the dark zone. Su Chi continued forward. He also tossed people into his holy light space as much as possible, all the while collecting all resources, elevating his own spiritual energy. The fusion speed of the immortal path also sped up. The reason time was needed lies in the fact that, with every new sequence integrated, the new sequence would automatically develop to the level of the current sequence before it could be activated. Hence, once the Immortal Way sequence characteristics burst forth, they must possess incredibly potent strength. Meanwhile, As everyone gradually advanced and more abyss and current world powers were unsealed, within the entire dark zone, in a void as vast as a black hole, the enormous surging of black and white was pouring out like a deluge bit by bit. As if the giant lid of the present world's aquarium had been opened, new feed, liquid rich in unknown components, was pouring into the tank. Countless chains within the nihility, and the giant silhouettes entwined on the chains, also quivered slightly. And in its center, different from the other giant silhouettes, this figure was bound by innumerable chains. Just like that, this figure seemed to slightly lift its head the size of a galaxy. The world tree's light. It's time to twinkle. Simultaneously, the world tree withered leaves on all the heavenly destiny people began to tremble, pointing to the same place. Also, the patterns on the bodies of all abyss believers were scalding hot, emitting copious amounts of black gas, forming projections of the dark scripture, likewise pointing towards a certain coordinate. Don't be fooled by the number of world fragments they've experienced. In fact, with the advancement of a few star ring days, they've only reached the extent previously explored over half a year. Of course, due to the changes in the dark zone, the previously hidden world fragments had all surfaced, allowing everyone to come into contact with them and thus promoting their recovery. Everyone's been pushing forward quickly, after all, as long as you have enough experience in the early stages, the rest is just a repeat process, simply encountering different ancient strengths. Plus, the pioneering team numbers many, so the speed is quite fast. If it were in another game, it would be a clear grind fest. Su Qi paused for a moment, but now, he rested his head on his hand and gazed at the followers in the distance. The projection of the dark scripture was slowly appearing under the praise of countless believers. We've reached a critical node now. The dark scripture had just suddenly manifested, seemingly due to a fluctuation of some kind of force, emitting a strange aura. It was guiding all the abyss believers. Finally, it's starting to make contact with the true power of God. Clearly, the excitement in the eyes of the purple-haired venerable and others could hardly be restrained, and they also knew what this scene represented. After all, there had been a meeting. Su Qi also knew what he was going to face next, which was to officially enter the core and launch the Venerable Plan. Moreover, what they had come into contact with before were all extraordinary existences, warriors from Sequence 1 to Sequence 5. But next, they would face demigod, and even divine strength. The facet of the abyss and the towering fragment of the gods would all reveal their traces. Meanwhile, Su Qi quietly looked at the world tree withered leaf lying on his body. From just now, the veins on this leaf began to glow, completely different from the previous wilted twinkling, and it was also trembling intensely, pointing towards a specific direction. Knowing it's the final moment, it starts to shut down the power-saving mode. Ready to burn out, he muttered. The leaf burned and flickered as if channeling all of its strength into this act. It seems the other heavenly destiny people have also received similar guidance. But actually, there was no need. Like the pull in a vortex, anyone who steps into this endless maelstrom will eventually move towards its center. Many top powers have probably already received the news and made all the preparations. Venerable Yi Ju, the suited venerable said, puffing on a cigarette, his eyes suddenly turning to Su Qi. Your totem is flickering, and the bald venerable leaned against a nearby tree, his gaze coldly falling on Su Qi. It has a similar frequency to the fluctuations of the dark scripture's aura. Su Qi looked at his own totem calmly, around which the evil god totem's dark flames surged and flickered with a dark aura. He curved his lips into a smile. Maybe this indicates I am the one most attuned to the abyss, the most suitable existence in the Venerable Plan compared to you all. The purple-haired venerable looked peacefully at Su Qi, gently saying, Get ready. The descent is coming soon. Su Qi calmly concealed the totem on his arm. The flickering black and red flames had already burned away his sleeve. To be honest, he already knew that the purple-haired venerable had begun to suspect him. After all, there had been many irregularities, and the flickering of the totem just now had given him away. I still need to be circumspect, although it feels a bit troublesome. Now is not the time to reveal my identity. Su Qi pressed his eyes. The reason his totem had flickered just now was due to a surge in the strength of the evil god within his spiritual eyes. One part was due to the attraction of the Dark Scripture's aura, the other was getting closer to the core, causing it to act up more frequently. If not for the World Tree Withered Leaf also igniting itself at this moment, Su Qi might have had to enter his spiritual eye's spiritual world and fight another battle with the blood-killing bishop. It was the best method to suppress the uprising of the evil god's strength. Even though Su Qi still couldn't defeat the blood-killing bishop, it provided some relief from the agitation. At this moment, the Dark Scripture suddenly burst forth. The sky dome turned a dark red color, and the ripples leading to the next world also changed, filled with a great deal of chaos and nihility, with space storms inside like black holes, threatening to suck everyone in. The coordinates are set. We can depart now, esteemed venerables. The followers had completed the ritual, and the Dark Scripture had provided a series of instructions. Then let's set off. What we've seen before was just a warm-up. What's coming next is the main event. The bald venerable's body tattoos were all writhing, with a multitude of monsters coming to life. The suited venerable lit a new cigar. His body even showed signs of turning into mist. The purple-haired venerable had a six-pointed star mark appearing on his forehead. Trying to look cool. Each of you? Su Qi took in the scene. He was not at all surprised. None of them had truly shown their full strength before, and there wasn't even a need to use it, completely relying on the push by the Abyss believers, outnumbering with sheer numbers. Su Qi did not show off either. He was not one to brag. Subtlety was his style. The four venerables stepped into the ripples first, and the numerous followers and believers quietly watched as Su Qi passed them. A path formed by a magnificent display of starfire, the crimson gold starlight burning like flames, a completely different style from the other three. The many believers, so straightforward, blatantly showing off. And the moment Su Qi stepped into the ripples, simultaneously, a series of information boxes appeared before his eyes. Paradise event burst. This is the ultimate guidance from the World Tree Withered Leaf. The door to the extremely evil world slightly opens. Current progress 40%. Please pay attention, players. From now on, pollution value will be displayed in real time. Current pollution value 423. Warning. Once pollution value reaches 1000, a major event will be triggered, and from then on, it will never drop below 1000. In this major world event, extremely evil event, after pollution value breaks through 1000, it will continue to fluctuate. Main storyline triggered. At the end of the event, please keep the pollution value below 10,000. All player actions that reduce pollution value will be recorded by the system, and rewards will be given based on players' performance in the event. Su Qi looked at the series of information boxes popping up and was overwhelmed. Has the main storyline finally been triggered? This must be the longest instance yet. To be honest, he hadn't left the instance world yet. Within the extremely evil event, a long time had passed, almost 2 months. However, Su Qi had bought his own ticket and rode a fragment of the world ship from the Duen world, so he didn't actually stay in the extremely evil world for too long. Many players had arrived ahead of time, exploring for nearly a month, and now after opening the magic box, they were about to officially enter a critical phase. At this very moment, countless people are probably shuttling through the frenzied nihility, surrounded by an even thicker, eerie aura of violent nihility. Su Qi made no moves. After all, he wasn't alone, but he was still able to sense the old days hidden deep within the nihility. This shuttle is taking longer than I thought, Su Qi muttered to himself. Before it took less than a minute to step into the next world. But now, 10 minutes had passed, and it seemed that they still haven't reached the next node. However, at this moment, Su Qi suddenly felt a chill in his body. A sense of extreme danger suddenly hit him. This sudden onset, as if carrying the aura of death that would completely engulf him. It caught Su Qi somewhat off guard. Immediately, Su Qi prepared to snap his fingers, ready to summon Starfire on the spot. But the next moment, the extreme rationality in his heart made him stop his movement. No, this isn't a targeted death threat. It's the naturally erupting aura of death from the core depths of nihility. The terrifying aura of death came quickly and left just as fast, as if it was merely an illusion that lasted for a moment. However, Su Qi's eyes turned to the depths of nihility. He thought he saw a question mark, but due to the speed being too fast, it vanished in a flash, only appearing distantly for a moment in his field of vision. He didn't even get a clear look at those stacks of information. Among them, it seemed 3 words made some impact on Su Qi. Terminator. Regardless of what the Terminator represents, the person is quite nice, knowing that everyone is stuffy and hot when shuttling through nihility, especially coming over, to provide a chill and cool everyone down. Su Qi was certain. Everyone else probably broke out into a cold sweat at that instant. And after another 20 minutes, ripples finally appeared amidst the distorted light and shadows. This meant they were nearing the world fragments. But this time it seemed far from peaceful. The violent ripples carried an astonishing twisted force, like a vortex, ready to drag anyone who approached into it. A strange feeling permeated the surroundings, with both divinity and warm holy light, as well as the eeriness that seemed to devour everything. Before being swept away, Su Qi couldn't even catch a glimpse, having already lost his 5 senses, completely plunged into darkness. At the same time, Su Qi wasn't sure if it was an illusion, but he heard that phrase that hadn't appeared for a long time, "Welcome to the Abyss." When Su Qi opened his eyes, it was Luo Shenfu that awoke him. Taoist Su, wake up! Coupled with Su Qi's immense spiritual power, he sensed the people around him the instant he awoke. As soon as he opened his eyes, he saw Abyss believers sprawled all over the floor, along with 3 Sequence 6 followers. Each of them had fainted on the ground. It seems that although the ripple swirl was fierce, it only caused the group to be split, preventing thousands of people from being flung as one. However, the other venerables did not seem to be here. Su Qi. What's happening? Luo Shenfu was startled, still asking me what's happening. He spoke in a deep voice. You're surrounded by dangerous Abyss believers, and those few followers even possess the formidable strength of Sequence 6. Even though they are still unconscious, they could awaken at any moment. Your situation is very dangerous. He had just sensed the danger and triggered the protecting the Tao mechanism, awakening from the ceiling. He had also experienced brief darkness and had only just returned, which is when he discovered that the people surrounding Su Qi were from the Abyss. Anyway, let's leave first, said Luo Shenfu. He wasn't concerned about these people's strength. What he truly dreaded was the word, Abyss. Before Su Buxian grew stronger, he would do everything possible to keep Buxian away from this danger. Oh, that... Su Qi slightly squinted his eyes. Then don't rush it. I'll take another 10-minute nap. Luo Shenfu? Sleep? Snooze for 10 minutes? He looked at Su Qi's relaxed demeanor, and his eyebrows twitched. Do all those who have merged with the immortal path and become Daozi have such an exceptional attitude, showing no desire to flee? Luo Shenfu held an extreme fear of the Abyss. After all, he had witnessed the true power of the Abyss. The horrifying Terminators, the dark descent from the old days had destroyed his immortal path dimension. He was not at all prepared to let Buxian face the enemy this early on. Let's go, Daozi. These believers are about to awaken. In this extremely evil world, they must have an earth-shattering plan. We only need to get our destined opportunities, without getting tainted in the slightest. Luo Shenfu did his best to explain everything clearly. His eyes were sharp. The original strength of those few followers, the totems on their bodies, and the eerie power they carried with them, he had noticed it all. But his brows slightly furrowed. They've already awakened. It was too late. Luo Shenfu's aura became somewhat dangerous. Since they couldn't leave silently, protecting Buxian was his top priority. He would just have to kill everyone here and leave no trace. But the next moment, Luo Xinfu was slightly shocked. Upon awakening, the followers saw Su Qi, but instead of showing indifference and hostility, they seemed to hold a degree of reverence. And they came over. "Lord Yi Ju, are you all right?" "I'm fine," Su Qi said with a light smile. "Wake the others as well." "Understood." The followers immediately acted. The power of the totems surged out, and spiritual power radiated to each person. Nearly 300 people also gradually awakened from their daze. Luo Xinfu was stunned by this scene. He was confused, astonished, and a bit dumbfounded. What in the world is this? Su Qi did not answer but slowly stood up. All eyes were gathered on him. He said with a light, smiling smile, "My companions, it seems we've gotten scattered, but no matter, our true God will guide us, and the power of the abyss will ultimately be unleashed. Yes, Venerable Lord. Furthermore, having entered here means we are one step closer to the goal of the Abyss Church. And now everything we do is..." Su Qi felt it was not thrilling enough. He raised his arm, revealing the totem on it, and with a wicked smile said, "For the Abyss." The totems of the followers seemed to flicker in response, and with hoarse voices, they said, "For the Abyss." Everyone was even more excited, echoing with emotion as they shouted together, "For the Abyss." Su Qi was pleased with this scene. But Luo Xinfu, at this moment, Luo Xinfu had become utterly silent, as if his system had crashed. His eyes were bloodshot and vacant as he stared at the scene in front of him. His entire being felt as though he had been dragged into a washing machine and tumbled countless times. He was now completely falling apart. What on earth was this bizarre event? He was still frantically advising his Daozi to stay away from the dangerous abyss enemies, only to suddenly discover that his own Daozi was the boss of these abyss enemies.